Chapter 41, Fighting with Speakers, is invincible. After a long, painstaking explanation, the misunderstanding was finally cleared up. Black Magician Girl and Virgo immediately hit it off, sitting together in a corner whispering and stealing glances at Chess and Lucy. As summoned spirits, they just seemed to click. "That's right, Chess. Now that Lucy's back, we can finally look at this thing, right?" Natsu said, already walking to the bookshelf. He pulled out a stack of papers covered in writing. "My novel!" Lucy sprayed the rest of her black tea straight across the room. Her inner power flared, and she kicked Natsu so hard he crashed to the floor. Snap, the floor even cracked. "Seriously, can you stop thinking about that thing?" Clutching her book to her chest, Lucy's face transformed into a demonic mask with fangs and sharp teeth. "Yes, I'm very sorry." Natsu's pale little spirit floated in the air as he mumbled, sheepish. Chess calmly produced a tissue and wiped the tea off Lucy's dress. "Don't worry, with me here, I won't let Natsu peek. Besides, I'm a creator too. I understand that weird shame you get when someone finds something you've been hiding." Hearing that, Lucy melted. Tears streamed down her face. "Wah, Chess, please come visit often, especially when Natsu's around." She glared deadly at Natsu, then suddenly brightened. "Wait, Chess, you said creator. Are you a writer too?" Lucy tried to imagine Chess sitting at a desk, quill in hand, brooding over prose. The image fell completely flat. "Not really. Writing novels isn't really my thing," Chess said, almost embarrassed. Lucy forced an awkward smile. "Then what kind of creation did you mean?" "On Kiltina Continent," Chess answered, "there's a place called Magic Music Town." Black Magician Girl held up a finger and jumped in for him. "During the 10-year quest, Master has been trying to write songs." "Huh? Songs? Music?" The reaction wasn't just Lucy's. Natsu and Happy, who knew Chess best, were stunned. They looked at each other and then burst out laughing. If imagining Chess writing a novel was funny, picturing him with a guitar was even harder. Chess straightened up, eyes gleaming. Fighting enemies with a passionate musical background, no matter how you think about it, that's unbeatable. Natsu and Happy immediately pictured Chess as a one-man wrecking crew, lugging a giant speaker and bashing enemies into meat patties. That made more sense to them. "Sense my foot! That's way too bloody!" Lucy cried. She leapt forward and swatted their imagined image to pieces. And even a magician skilled in music magic wouldn't fight carrying a speaker. "You should have more imagination," Chess said lightly, looking at Lucy. "As a novelist, you ought to know that." "Chess wasn't saying I don't have imagination," Happy muttered under his breath. "Lucy is so weird." "Shut up, you dead cat," Lucy snapped. Chess smiled. "It's meant to be a reserved performance for the Harvest Festival. We haven't gathered all the performers yet, but since the mood's right, I'll play something for you as a treat." Under Natsu, Lucy, and Happy's incredulous stares, Chess lifted a blank ordinary card. A magic circle flickered and a specially made magic guitar appeared in his hands, with a magic piano materializing beside him. "Master, let me accompany you." Black Magician Girl raised her hand and hopped onto the piano. She wasn't actually a trained musician, her experience was almost non-existent, but she loved magic instruments themselves, which you could operate by pouring in magic power. After some practice, she could manage basic things. Chess was similar. The sheet music had been arranged for him by professionals from the Music City on Kiltina. "You can actually play an instrument?" Lucy couldn't hide her surprise when Chess casually slung the magic guitar over his shoulder. "Oh no. Happy, cover your ears. That's definitely going to drain your soul and your life." Natsu and Happy, who understood Chess, covered their ears with looks of horrified anticipation. The idea of Chess preparing to perform was so alien they couldn't not react. Hey, you don't have to be so dramatic," Lucy scoffed, though she took a step back, a little nervous. Chess didn't scold Natsu and Happy, he just looked confident. He knew what he was about to play, the most soulful, passionate background music he could summon, the kind that belonged in fairy tale. "Listen carefully, Natsu. Don't get fired up," he warned, nodding to Black Magician Girl. Then he began. Deng, 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 deng. The cheerful, melodious prelude washed over them. It felt like some dormant gene deep in their blood had been woken. Natsu and Happy froze. Their hands fell from their ears as the music touched them. "Wait, this music." Lucy's eyes widened. Born into a wealthy household, she'd heard plenty of rock and grand compositions, but nothing like this. Her blood was literally boiling to the rhythm. The melody rose and fell and pulled something in her chest with it. Could Chess's music really boost morale in battle? Lucy was stunned and thrilled. "Princess, you're burning up," Virgo said in her calm, practical tone. "I meant your skirt," Virgo added. "Huh!" Lucy looked down, and her skirt was actually on fire. The flames leapt because Natsu, completely swept away by the music, had clenched his fists and flared with his usual raging flames. "No, stop! Chess! Stop now! Natsu!" He's really getting fired up. "Lucy, once Master starts playing, he can't be interrupted," Chess said. "That's just one of his performance settings." "Is that a good idea for someone who tries to hide things?" Lucy sputtered. "Aha! I'm all fired up," Natsu whooped. "My house! My house!" "I!" Happy echoed. "I, my foot, I!" someone else shouted. In an instant, the scene devolved into glorious chaos. Flames, shrieks, and the most enthusiastic, uncontrollable cheering you could imagine. While Chess played on, utterly convinced that fighting with speakers was invincible. Chapter 42. Urza is back. In the end, Lucy, driven to sheer desperation, used the tea on the coffee table to summon Aquarius. It had been a risky move, but it prevented Natsu from turning her rented room into a pile of smoking ashes. The price, however, fell entirely on Lucy. Aquarius made it clear she didn't approve of being called up casually with a cup that had been drunk from, and she was even less pleased that the summoner had been on a date at the time. Lucy came away from the encounter thoroughly beaten. "That was something else. Managed to survive another day," Lucy muttered, half lying in a bathtub full of bubbles, closing her eyes and savoring the rare luxury of peace. Chess had left after finishing his performance and gone back across the river with Black Magician Girl. Natsu and Happy had been unceremoniously ejected by her. So for the moment, Lucy thought she was alone, or so she thought. After a series of tiny, muffled splashes, a pink head popped up beside her. "Princess, do you require my service?" Virgo asked primly. "No, why aren't you gone yet?" Lucy jerked upright, hair on end. Failing to assist the princess is a grave disgrace for a celestial spirit. Therefore, Virgo ignored her protests, produced a whip from somewhere impossible, and said with deadly seriousness, "Please punish me severely." Lucy blinked. Of course. The whole "where were you earlier" line had just been a prelude. Virgo was a masochist. It explained everything. Lucy let out a helpless laugh and sank back into the suds. "I swear, normal life keeps slipping farther away from me." Virgo beamed with eager anticipation while Lucy remembered the string of disasters that had led to this point and sighed, letting the bubbles drift across her face. The next morning, Chess was up early. Between the HOA-level good mornings from Magnolia's neighbors, he made his way to the Fairy Tale Guild Hall. Makarov had scheduled the Guildmaster's regular meeting for 2 days, with 3 sessions in total. The first session was set for that afternoon. They had to leave early to catch the first train to Kuriboh town. Before sunrise, the guild was quiet, the best time to move unseen. Most of the younger members were still asleep, Natsu and Happy among them. Only a scattering of familiar faces lingered. The old-timers Macau and Wakaba sat at a table, chewing on dry bread and debating which street had the most voluptuous girls. The conversation was hearty enough that their breakfast could afford to be meager. Nearby, Nabu loitered in front of the job board in his usual caveman getup, nearly blending into the wood and parchment. Chess exchanged a few casual greetings and headed straight for the bar, where Mira stood in a wine-red dress. "Good morning, Ches," she said, sliding a plate across to him. "I know you're coming to the regular meeting with the guild master, so I made this for you." The plate held a steaming fried egg, a soft pull-apart loaf, and a cup of hot milk. Ches didn't fuss. He grabbed a chair, rolled up his sleeves, and attacked the food like a man who hadn't eaten since yesterday. Mira watched him with a smile. "Of course Mira wouldn't let me touch it. It was made for Chess." Macau and Wakaba complained between bites, green with envy. Neither had the nerve to try and take him on. S-class members were not for provoking. Chess took a mouthful of milk and through a muffled grin asked Mira, "Where's the guild master?" "Didn't we say we'd leave about now?" "He said this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so he wants to look his best," Mira replied. "He should be nearly ready." Footsteps came down from the second floor then, and Makarov appeared. Chess almost didn't recognize him. The tiny old man now wore a crisp black suit, a perfectly knotted red tie, and shining leather shoes. He looked uncharacteristically solemn and, well, dapper. It was a little hard to reconcile this with his usual eccentric old man gait. Macau and Wakaba's faces betrayed their disbelief. Even Nabu tore his eyes away from the job board. "Guildmaster, you look very handsome," Mira said politely. "Ha ha ha! Well, this is the regular meeting, after all," Makarov answered, chest puffed with pride. "I must make a good impression." Chess managed an awkward, polite smile. It wasn't that Makarov's outfit was hideous, exactly. It was just oddly incongruent with the rest of him, like putting a formal tuxedo on a grinning prankster. "By the way, Chess, why don't you put on a suit too? This meeting's important," Makarov suggested solemnly. "No thanks. I'm just coming along," Chess said quickly. "I don't want to steal your thunder." Makarov straightened his tie, sniffed a little, a noticeable fragrance following him, and beamed. Mira gave a small cough. "Guildmaster, it's nearly time." "Oh, right. We'll miss the first train if we're late," Makarov realized, and then suddenly the little man was all energy again, bustling exactly the way one would expect when excited about something. Chess watched Makarov's childlike enthusiasm and shook his head, smiling. Soon, the two of them slipped out onto Magnolia Street and were gone, heading for the station. With the early birds gone, more guild members arrived. Natsu, Happy, Gray, Lucy, and several others filled the hall until the quiet morning was a hum of activity again. Then, with no warning, the guild doors were flung open. Loki dashed in, wild-eyed and panting. The room dropped from a cheerful clatter to a stunned silence at his first words. "Bad news. Urza is back!" Chapter 43, Unexpected Encounter with President Swordbite Tiger. A hush fell over the guild hall as if lightning had struck. Heavy footsteps echoed, and a shadow cast across the street entrance, a figure carrying a gigantic magical horn, radiating an oppressive aura. "Wait, Urza? Is that the one Natsu and Gray were talking about?" Lucy watched everyone's shocked faces and felt her heart race as memories of the terrifying monster that breathed magical flames and kicked up hills flashed in her mind. Mira stepped to Lucy's side and smiled reassuringly. "There may be arguments about who the strongest in the guild is, but when it comes to Urza, there's no question. She's the strongest female mage." Lucy wanted Mira to stop talking. She was already inching backward. Laxus's fierce look from the previous day was still burned into her memory. The clack of armored boots on the floor grew louder, then a heavy thud as the horn was set down. "Wow, so beautiful," someone murmured. Lucy took the chance to look properly at the newcomer. The woman was clad entirely in steel armor, her long hair a vivid red, her eyes sharp as blades. She was nothing like the monstrous image Natsu and Gray had described. The newcomer inwardly scolded herself for the overreaction. "I'm back. Is the guildmaster here?" Urza's authoritative voice filled the hall. "Welcome back. The guildmaster took Chess to Kuriboh town for the regular meeting," Mira replied with a smile. "So the guildmaster isn't here, and Chess isn't either." Urza's expression tightened. Someone nearby, braver than the rest, pointed at the enormous horn and asked curiously, "Hey Urza, what's that?" "A horn I cut from a monster I defeated. The locals gave it to me as a gift." Urza glanced casually at the questioner. "What, is it taking up too much space?" "No, not at all," the person stammered, backing away. "On the way back, I heard about a lot of things you guys have been up to." Urza's expression turned stern. Her gaze swept the hall like a blade. "Kana, what kind of behavior is it for a girl to drink with her legs crossed? Biska, if you want to dance, go outside. Wakaba, your cigarette ash is on the table. Macau." Those called lowered their heads, ashamed, avoiding that gaze. Macau trembled as if walking on thin ice. "Forget it. I have more important matters to deal with right now," Urza sighed, rubbing her forehead. Lucy thought silently, "You've said a lot already." Urza's brief reprimand made her status clear. An S-class mage, and it seemed something like the guild's disciplinary presence. "Are Natsu and Gray here?" "Here. Aye." The two answered in unison, surprising everyone as they hugged each other tightly. The display of weird camaraderie left Lucy slack-jawed. "Good. Looks like you two are still getting along," Urza said, satisfied. Her eyes then narrowed. Her expression grew serious and businesslike. I heard some very serious news on the way back. I should have reported it to the guild master, but there's not enough time. It needs to be handled now. Chess isn't here either, so both of you will come with me." Those words caused an immediate stir. Urza didn't elaborate. She ordered Natsu and Gray to meet her at Magnolia Station the next morning. Under her imposing presence, even the squabbling pair had no choice but to agree. Meanwhile, in Kuriboh town, a mansion at the end of a forest path served as the venue for the regular guildmaster meeting. The medieval-style building hummed with conversation as guildmasters from various organizations gathered. After their identities were checked by the guards, Makarov and Chess entered. Though the meeting hadn't officially started, many guildmasters had already arrived and clustered into small groups. Chess scanned the faces, many familiar, some new. In the years since he left Fiore on his 10-year mission, new guilds had sprung up. At the sight of Chess, chatter slowed and whispers spread. A few guildmasters leaned in, comparing recent gossip in newspapers. "Yo, isn't that Chess from Fairy Tale?" someone whispered. 3 guildmasters from allied guilds stepped forward. Bob of Blue Pegasus, Goldmine of Quattro Cerberus, and Uba Baba Sama of Lamia Scale. They were all longtime associates of Fairy Tale. "Guildmasters, long time no see," Chess said with a smile. "I heard about the Galuna Island incident. Chess, you get more charming every year," the portly, leering Bob gushed, approaching Chess with a flush. Chess bristled and instinctively took a step back. If Bob weren't a guildmaster, Chess would have been tempted to throw a punch. Makarov, hands on his hips, laughed heartily. "Compared to us, your guilds still have a long way to go." He'd never cared about outside opinion of Fairy Tale, but in front of old friends he couldn't resist boasting. "Eh? Chess, who is that?" Goldmine crossed his arms and stared at Makarov's suit-clad figure in surprise. Makarov froze, muttering under his breath. Chess didn't answer the question verbally. He simply stepped forward and straightened the black suit hat perched on Makarov's head. "It's Makarov!" The 3 guildmasters blurted together, eyes wide. Uba Babasama spun on the spot in astonishment. Their exaggerated reactions made Chess wonder whether they were genuinely flustered or just putting him on. "Bastards! Stop teasing an old man!" Makarov snapped, more amused than annoyed. Goldmine grinned sheepishly. "Sorry, I just didn't react for a moment. That suit reminds me of how handsome I used to be," he said, face full of false modesty. Bob clapped his pudgy hands to his cheeks, feigning swoon. Uba Babasama was still wobbling. The arrival of Makarov and Chess had turned the once-staid venue lively. In a corner, a heavily built man leaned against a pillar, his gaze fixed on Chess with the intensity of a predator. His pupilless eyes burned like tiger slashes. Chess felt something cold, a focused killing intent, and narrowed his eyes. He traced its direction, and from the figure's physique and attire, recognized him. Sabertooth's guildmaster, Giaman, stood there, teeth clenched with barely held rage. Thoughts of his daughter, Minerva, came sharply to mind. Since Galuna Island, she had begun to show sympathy for other guilds' mages, and a reluctance to crush the weak, a change that angered Giaman, so Sabertooth had come to the meeting as well. Chess's lips curved into a smile. Under the surprised looks of Makarov and the others, he walked slowly toward Giaman. At that time, Sabertooth hadn't built much of a reputation yet, and its relationship with Fairy Tale was practically non-existent. So why was this muscle-bound man acting so hostile? Was he connected to Minerva somehow? Chess wondered silently. Back on Galuna Island, he hadn't been certain that the little girl cheering was actually Sabertooth's young mistress. After all, the timeline was 7 years off, and his memory of Minerva as a child was vague. His suspicion grew when Makarov, fresh from a council meeting, mentioned someone had unexpectedly awakened the 18 fighting god magic of Calamity and Demon. "Kid, can I help you?" Giaman said, as he crossed his arms and shoved his chin out, his tone full of disdain as Chess walked straight toward him. He was clearly surprised that someone would approach him so boldly, himself, a chairman of a guild. The other chairman looked over, curious to see what Chess intended. If they remembered correctly, that was Giaman of Sabertooth, right? Weren't they strangers to Fairy Tale? Under the gathering stare of so many guild leaders, Chess met Giaman's glare with an unflinching expression. The atmosphere tightened. After a few seconds of silence, Chess finally snapped. "What are you looking at?" Jimon had come ready to accuse, ready to make a spectacle of being insulted by a mere guild mage. But he halted. For a moment, he found the young man in front of him wasn't as reckless as rumor had painted. Heh, are all of you fairy tale people so thin-skinned? I bet the whole rescue of Galuna Island in the papers was just sensationalized publicity to grab attention. That's none of your business, Chess replied coolly. He knew Jimin's intent and wouldn't make a scene in front of so many chairmen. He didn't want to settle this here. He'd find a private place if it came to blows. You're arrogant. Jimin glanced over at Makarov, who sat back calmly, and a smug smile spread across his face. Still, I admire kids like you. I'm Jimin, chairman of Sabretooth. Pleasure to meet you. He reached out a huge, muscular hand. Since you won't back down, I'll give you a taste of my strength. Though Sabretooth's fame didn't match fairy tales, being a guild chairman still carried weight. If Chess refused to shake his hand in front of all these leaders, Fairy Tail would lose face. If he accepted, Jimin, confident in his physical magic, believed he could crush Chess's hand. In the magical world, card magicians were stereotypically weak in physical strength. So it's Chairman Jimin. Please guide me in the future, Chess said with a faint smile, and then to Jimin's surprise, he took the offered hand. Jimin sneered inwardly at the apparent naivety, then tightened his grip. A dense purple aura flared from him like a storm. At the same moment, a dark golden power surged up from Chess, meeting Jimin blow for blow. Their clasped hands shook under the raw force, and the oppressive energy rolled out across the hall. The chairmen present, accustomed to power displays, were not cowed but leaned in with interest. When did Sabretooth and Fairy Tail become enemies enough for a chairman to personally intimidate another? Judging by the energy, that one was hitting a wall. No, that's not right. This boy's power is enormous. He must be an S-class mage of Fairy Tail. I should keep an eye on him for recruiting later. Hey, Makarov, someone's laying hands on your kid. Aren't you going to stop them? Goldmine of Quattro Cerberus called out, glancing between Chess and Jimin. Makarov, legs crossed on his chair, waved a hand without concern. Laying hands? This is a friendly exchange. He could tell at a glance that the challenger was outmatched. What worried him more was why a random saber-toothed chairman was going after Chess for no reason. Fame wasn't always a blessing, apparently. Seems being famous isn't always good, Makarov-chan, Bob of Blue Pegasus teased in a sing-song voice. Don't call this old man something so disgusting. Makarov flinched at the nickname. Jimin, caught in the center of the magical struggle, broke into a cold sweat. He hadn't expected the boy's force. He doesn't look all that strong, but what is this power? He thought. Maybe the intel was wrong. Maybe this kid isn't just a card magician. Maybe he's some kind of body cultivator. Pain throbbed through Jimin's hand, and his pride couldn't stand being dominated by a brat. He roared, throwing everything into the grip as if prepared to fight to the death. Chess, whose main advantage lay in his cards, felt the strain too, but his face stayed calm. Gentlemen, please give this old man some face and stop here so we don't delay the regular meeting, an old voice said. A thin, elderly man in chieftain's attire stepped into the space between them. It was Robin Root, chairman of Edolas, a guild that, effectively, existed for only one person. On hearing him, Chess relaxed and deliberately withdrew his magic, releasing Jimin's wrist. Among the chairmen present, very few commanded his respect, but Robin Root was one of them. Robin had sealed Nirvana by becoming something like a thought form, an undead guardian, standing watch over the seal for decades, perhaps centuries, waiting for the day someone might come to remove it. He had even projected dozens of sustained personality illusions so Wendy wouldn't feel alone. His original magic reserves were unfathomable. Jimin gave a subtle shake to his arm, shot Chess one last disdainful look, and turned away. Hey, Jimin, the regular meeting is about to start. Where are you going? Another chairman called after him. A boring meeting. I'm not interested. If there's a problem, have the council write me. Jimin replied coldly and walked out, vanishing around the corner. Once outside, he leaned against the wall out of sight, waiting a moment to be sure no one watched. The facade of composure slipped. He pouted and blew frantically on his swollen right hand. Damn it! That brat! Damn it! Who? Is he a card magician? Chapter 45. Have a grudge? Take revenge on the same day. Inside the venue, the oppressive tension had finally eased, but the clash between Chess and Jimin was still the talk of the guildmasters. They clustered in small groups, arguing and whispering about what had happened. "Mr. Chess, tell me exactly what's going on," Makarov said, pulling Chess aside and lowering his voice. "From the moment it started, I could feel his hostile intent, but I don't know the specifics." As Chess answered, "Just a petty man jealous of anyone who stands out." Makarov remembered Bob's earlier analysis. The council had never told him that the one who triggered the 18 fighting god magic of Calamity and Demon had been Sabretooth's young lady. Jimin, was it? He made a mental note. Even though Chess had handled things, Makarov's protective instinct wouldn't let him ignore it. Still, on the surface he only gave a symbolic warning. No matter what, he's the guildmaster of a legitimate guild. If something like this happens again, tell me first. "Ha ha ha, isn't this even better?" Chess gestured at the crowd. "Guildmaster, didn't you notice how, after Jimin left, some guilds that were itching to make a move suddenly quieted down? So that was the reason you stepped in?" Makarov raised an eyebrow. "I brought you here to deter troublemakers." Chess smiled. Fairy Tail's reputation in Fiore was enormous. Envy and resentment were inevitable. Legitimate guilds weren't only allies, they were fierce competitors. If it wasn't so, Jose of Phantom Lord wouldn't later launch an all-out attack on Fairy Tail. Hearing that, Makarov paused. "I was thinking of handling it with something gentler, like a newspaper report," he said. "Isn't it better this way? We can skip the trouble." Chess shrugged. "You little brat," Makarov muttered, smiling helplessly. As they spoke, the thin, elderly Robinlu approached slowly. "Little brother Chess, thank you. You saved this old fool some embarrassment." Before Chess could answer, Makarov jumped in. "This little brat's just young and reckless. You've gone to enough trouble, Guildmaster Robinlu." He had heard rumors about the Chemist Guild's solitary master and knew how deep and dangerous Robinlu could be. "Young and reckless isn't enough to stop the 18 fighting god magic of Calamity and Demon by yourself to protect tourists," Robinlu said with a sigh. "A powerful magician who still cares to protect the weak. Magicians like you are rare, little brother Chess." "Ha ha ha. Chess is a clumsy fool who just likes making a mess. He doesn't deserve such praise." Makarov laughed and patted Chess on the shoulder. His tone was humble, but the laugh that rang through the hall had a proud, self-satisfied edge. This was the scene he'd been looking forward to since yesterday, dressed up in his suit. Chess stared at Makarov for a beat, and then Robinlu cleared his throat. "By the way, there's a clumsy little girl in my guild. If Guildmaster Makarov and little brother Chess ever meet her, please be kind to her." No problem, no problem. Leave it to Fairy Tail," Makarov boomed, slapping his chest. "Don't worry, Guildmaster Robinlu," Chess nodded. Who could refuse the silly, adorable Wendy? After a few polite exchanges, Robinlu thanked them and left. Other guildmasters drifted over. Some praised Chess, some tried to poach for Fairy Tail, and others joked about introductions to Chess's daughters. At the same time, a few figures lurked in shadowy corners, sneering. After all, the Guild Alliance was its own kind of Jianghu, a world of rivalry and honor. When the council's staff arrived to preside over the meeting, the guild masters took their seats, and the regular session officially began. Chess didn't stay. After a quick word to Makarov, he slipped out. He had no taste for procedural meetings, and other matters demanded his attention. Staring down the forest path still marked by traces of a magic mobile, Chess casually drew a card with the back of his hand. A brilliant magic circle flashed. When the light faded, he was gone. The next morning, at Magnolia Station, Mira's strongest team assembled. Led by Urza, Natsu, Lucy, and the others, they set out for a suspected location of the death flute, Lullaby. Rumors of the Dark Guild Eisenwald's conspiracy had surfaced. In Kuriboh town, most guildmasters had stayed overnight at the meeting mansion since the regular session had lasted 2 days. Early risers sat in pairs and small groups, sipping morning tea and preparing for the second day. The strange incident on a nearby hill was the morning's hot topic. An unexplained explosion had leveled the small mountain. In the guild hall, Makarov and Chess sat facing one another. "The explosion they're talking about, was that you brat?" Makarov asked, holding his teacup and keeping his voice low. Chess grinned and scratched his head. Ha ha, of course you can't hide anything from me, Guildmaster. Makarov's face didn't reveal much, but he finished his tea and asked, "You didn't expose your identity?" He was protective of his own, and though he didn't approve of reckless action, he already tacitly accepted Chess's behavior. Jimin was a legitimate guildmaster. An obvious attack could cause trouble. "No," Chess replied, "that's good. I didn't disguise myself." Makarov immediately spat out the tea he hadn't swallowed, his eyes going wide. Chess produced a handkerchief and calmly wiped tea from Makarov's face. "If it were you, would you tell people you were beaten by a junior from another guild? If anybody would hide it, it would be G-Man, a man who preached absolute power and scorned the weak. He wouldn't dare admit defeat to a kid. He'd never tell anyone. He'd cover it up however he could." Makarov pictured it and nodded in firm agreement. Of course, G-Man would never tell those council fools he'd been beaten black and blue by a junior. His pride wouldn't allow it. At the Sabertooth Guild, 3 children and 2 kittens sat around a table reading a newspaper with a story about Irmo Relic Island. "Wow, hey, did she really use a giant light sword to pin down the monster?" Little Sting was sprawled on the table, dreaming of whether he could eat that light sword. "As expected of the guild Natsu's in, such a powerful magician," Little Rogue murmured in admiration. Little Minerva, still with short hair, stared at the photo in the paper with wide eyes. "One day I want to be as amazing a magician as Mr. Chess. First, could someone get me out of this weird space?" The Crimson Kitten Lector fretted, pacing in a small green chaotic pocket of magic. "Ah, sorry, I'm not used to this spell yet," Minerva said hurriedly, dispelling the mishap. Lecter collapsed to the floor with a thud. Their laughter echoed through the room until the door slammed open and a shadow fell across the sunlight. G-Man walked in, his face bruised and swollen. The 3 children froze in fear, including Minerva. Everyone feared this temperamental guildmaster. "Guildmaster, what happened to you?" the others asked, noticing his injuries. "Nothing. I fell on my way back," G-Man lied, exactly as Chess had predicted. He ignored the questions and stalked over to the table. Seeing the newspaper, his anger flared. He punched it and the wooden table into splinters. "Minerva, you didn't listen to me at all," he said coldly. Looking at the shredding paper and flying wood, Minerva trembled, but the memory of being fiercely protected earlier swelled into courage inside her. "Father, I think that even if you don't abandon the weak, you could become incredibly strong. Just like Mr. Chess." Before she could finish, a merciless kick struck her. Her small body flew through the air, smashing tables and chairs as she went, before slamming into the guild bar. She coughed up blood as rubble collapsed around her. "Remember this," G-Man said without looking back. "From now on, your goal is to surpass Ches and crush him beneath your feet. I'll give you special training." He walked away, leaving Minerva coughing in the wreckage. Chapter 46. Weird Way to Say Hello. The other 2 regular meetings in Kuriboh town went off without incident. With nothing pressing to do, Chess took the Black Magician Girl and wandered through the nearby mountains and forests, looking for magic beasts and birds of prey to spar with, more accurately, to rough up and train against. During the lunch break in the middle of the meetings, Makarov received a magic letter from Mira. The message was simple. Urza, Natsu, and Gray had formed a team. Mira's holographic projection beamed as she declared that, with Lucy tagging along to keep Natsu and Gray from fighting where Urza couldn't see, this might be the strongest team in the guild right now. She was very pleased with her perfect arrangement. Makarov, however, did not share her composure. His hand shook so badly holding the letter that Chess, who had blown up a nearby mountain on a whim, would have been impressed. Putting power aside and just looking at destructive capacity, Urza, Natsu, and Gray together were roughly the equivalent of 2 Chess. "I can't go back until tomorrow. Please, let them not destroy the town while I'm gone," he muttered. "And I need to keep an eye on Chess. It wasn't easy for him to get his reputation fixed after that Irmo Relic Island incident." He prayed silently. Meanwhile, over where Urza and the others had been operating, they had, in fact, left a trail of collateral damage, half of Oshibana Station in ruins, a section of the Ryusuka Canyon Railway wrecked, and 3 train carriages blown apart. That destruction had been the cost of fighting Eisenwald's Aragorn, Kageyama, and other Dark Guild members to stop a soul-harvesting plot. It was just that, unlike Chess's fiasco, theirs hadn't attracted Magic Weekly reporters or island tourists to plaster the whole affair across magazines. Time slipped by. By the time Chess and the Black Magician Girl returned to the mansion, the sun was low. Most of the guild masters who lived nearby had already left. Only a handful remained, waiting to catch the morning train. In a quiet corner of the hills near the mansion, Makarov sat alone, absorbed in a freshly released photo book from Magic Weekly. The girls in this issue are top-notch. Too bad Mira and the Black Magician Girl's Irmo-themed series got postponed. He sighed like the old pervert he was, but his gaze didn't move from the glossy pages. Then a figure wrapped in bandages stepped into his view. It was Kageyama, an Eisenwald executive who had slipped away from Urza and company. Makarov noticed a strange skull-shaped flute in the man's hand and immediately tensed. "Young man, if you're that badly hurt, you shouldn't be wandering around. Go to the infirmary," he said, forcing cheerfulness over his alarm. Kageyama startled at the sudden familiarity, forcing a smile. He covered his anxiety. "Oh, no, I just wanted some fresh air." Fresh air, in the middle of a regular meeting, near a mansion full of guildmasters? Makarov blinked but said nothing. He pointed at the flute. "Is that an instrument? Odd shape." "Yeah, actually I'm a musician. Mind if I play you a song?" Kageyama stammered, thinking fast. He had intended to play that very instrument, lullaby, and harvest the souls of nearby guildmasters. As soon as the tune blew, the righteous, high-ranking masters would drop like flies. Makarov shelved his doubts and put the photo book away. "Go on, then. Play. I'm in no hurry." He hopped down from the stone stool and walked straight up to Kageyama. A hint of gloom flitted across Kageyama's face as his hand lifted the skull flute to his lips. He was about to breathe the deadly notes when movement in the bushes caught his eye. Chess had met up with several guildmasters who had already smelled trouble. They were hiding, waiting to see what would happen. Then, from a distance, a group hurried through and broke the silence. Urza, Natsu, Gray, Happy, and Lucy, who had followed the Dark Guild to Kuriboh town. "Why is everyone here? Even Chess?" Lucy started, surprised. Natsu was less composed. He cleared his throat, ready to shout out that they'd found Eisenwald. "Not so loud, kids," Goldmine, master of Quattro Cerberus, huffed, stepping forward to shush Natsu. He cast a quick look at Makarov and the bandaged man. Seeing Makarov, the strongest team visibly relaxed and quieted down. That moment also drew the attention of Bob from Blue Pegasus. Eyes turning to hearts, he lunged admiringly toward Natsu and Gray. Natsu and Gray avoided him like a pair of cats sidestepping a skunk. Lucy shivered at the whole spectacle and whispered to Happy about who Bob was, but Urza was used to the chaos and gave a short order before striding forward. Urza planted herself in front of Chess and the Black Magician Girl in heavy steel boots. "Long time no see, Chess. Black Magician Girl." "Yo, Urza. Long time," Chess replied. They regarded each other for a beat and a half. Then, in the blink of an eye, Urza slammed Chess's head down. Chess just smiled and didn't resist. He gathered magic power at his brow. Urza drove her armored chest forward and headbutted him hard, steel on reinforced skull. The clear clang of metal on metal rang out. "That's some magic power, Chess. You've really gotten stronger since spending time on the Kiltina continent," Urza praised. "Ha, your armor's tougher too," Chess shot back, both of them grinning through the impact. "I heard about that Irmo Relic Island incident. You really made a scene when you came back." "It's fine. I mostly leveled the whole island after all." "Oh, reclaiming the title of King of Destruction, are you? Not an easy job. So what about you, Urza? I heard you did some things over on Kiltina too." "Really? Like what?" The two bantered like old friends, completely at ease. Lucy blinked, her mouth twitching in astonishment. So that was how Chess and Urza said hello, by battering each other like that. It was bizarre, baffling, and somehow entirely normal for them all at once. Chapter 47, Devil in the Book of Jelf. After a brief exchange, Chess tightened his fist, his eyes bright with fighting spirit. "Speaking of Urza, let's have that long-awaited match." He'd acquired the trap card Sacred Barrier, Mirror Force from Urza before. A year had passed, and Urza was clearly much stronger now. With some luck, maybe he could win an even more powerful forbidden card. Lucy, standing beside him, inwardly groaned. "Are you that impatient? Can't you see the situation?" Still, Thinking it through, a fight between Chess and Urza would be spectacular. Even if part of that amusement was a bystander's enjoyment, Lucy couldn't deny her curiosity. She had chased Eisenwald to the end and had seen Urza's terrifying power firsthand, how she completely dominated Natsu and Gray. But in this moment, would Urza even accept? Urza's reply came without hesitation. A challenge after a year? Fine, I accept. Her interest piqued. Urza's eyes narrowed, and she flexed her fingers. The steel of her arm guard scraped together with a metallic ring. Lucy, who had just finished mentally assessing the situation, blinked in surprise. Urza had agreed so quickly. Ah! A fight? I'm fired up. Attracted by the commotion, Natsu hurried over. This is a rare chance. Let me drag you two down from that S-class throne. Gray, bare-chested as always, followed close behind, his palms already exuding a faint chill. Lucy suddenly found herself the odd one out. Everyone else was ready to fight. Just as the four were about to move, the sound of a flute clattering to the ground cut through the tension. From the bushes, Kageyama knelt, half-crouched, his face twisted with inner conflict. Fire Dragon Natsu's roaring defense of his friends still echoed in his ears. In the end, he couldn't bring himself to blow the cursed flute. Makarov watched the young man and sighed softly as he approached. Nothing will change overnight, Makarov said gently. The weak will always be weak in some ways. Weakness itself isn't a sin. People are fragile by nature. Because being alone makes you insecure. That's why there are guilds and comrades, everyone supporting each other on the path forward. You may be clumsy, hit more walls, take more detours, but if you keep stepping forward, power will come. He paused, then glanced at Kageyama and added in a low voice, even without that flute with its cursed aura. At those words, Kageyama broke down completely. He buried his face in his hands and sobbed. I'm sorry. We lost. Oh. At the sound of surrender, cheers erupted from the bushes. Huh? Natsu and Gray? How are you here? Makarov exclaimed. Before he could finish, a lightning-fast blow of steel clanged into his head. The Guildmaster saw stars. That was a truly inspiring speech, Guildmaster, Urza said, smiling as she hugged him. My neck is going to break, Urza. Makarov raised his right hand with a trembling laugh. The other Guildmasters who had gathered behind him shook their heads and chuckled, the mood suddenly light and boisterous. Everyone, it seems things aren't finished yet. Black Magician Girl's sweet voice cut through the noise. Everyone turned to where she pointed. The hollow skull at the top of the cursed flute on the ground suddenly glowed with 3 crimson lights. The cursed aura swelled as a hoarse, gloomy voice issued from it. Enough already. You're taking forever. If no one's going to blow it, just say so. A purple current burst from the shattered flute, lifting it and sketching a vast magic circle in the air, crackling with violet lightning. A tremendous footfall followed, shaking the mountain itself. Something dark brown loomed where the light fell, a giant 3-eyed demon exhaling putrid air. What's happening? A monster came out of the flute? Lucy paled at the sight. The flute wasn't just meant to harvest souls, Goldmine, master of Quattro Cerberus, said with his arms folded. It's a living construct of magic recorded in Zaref's book, the demon called Lullaby. Hundreds of years old? A living demon? Lucy stepped back behind the others, frightened. Useless, pathetic humans. In the end, I'll just eat all your souls myself, Lullaby bellowed. The roar whipped the treetops into a frenzy. In the distance, the Fiora army that had come to subdue the beast raised its weapons and vowed to teach these arrogant wizards the power of soldiers. The shouts annoyed Lullaby. With a show of force, he gathered terrifying magic in his throat, turned, and unleashed it. Boom! A mountain peak flashed into dust. Report! The mountain peak has been destroyed, a guard cried out. Retreat! His commander ordered. The army's survival instincts won out. Their whistle for retreat pierced the air, and in an instant, the once mighty force vanished. Lucy inwardly seethed. Where had all that bluster gone? Are you here to be a joke? She thought. Satisfied with his deterrent, Lullaby grinned hungrily at Makarov and the assembled guildmasters. Hey, Chess, what does a soul taste like? Is it delicious? Natsu, wide-eyed with curiosity, couldn't help himself. I knew you'd ask that boring question, Lucy muttered. I don't know what a soul tastes like either, but Chess stepped forward against the gusting wind, stretching his limbs with a grin. It's definitely not as satisfying as beating this big guy up. Let's change the rules, he continued. The match we couldn't have earlier. Whoever lands the final blow on this demon wins. Urza, Natsu, and Gray all approved instantly. The final blow, huh? Then I can't hold anything back. Requip, Heaven's Wheel Armor. Sounds good, but you guys don't stand a chance. The winner is definitely me. Ice Make. Ha ha ha! I'm fired up, fire dragons. Magic power arrays flared in different colors, drawing admiring looks from the guildmasters watching. Urza's Nightly Magic, Gray's Ice Make, Natsu's Dragon Slayer power, these were almost legends to the onlookers. And then there was Chess's unique card magic. Black Magician Girl, get ready, Chess called. Magic surged through his body. Light flickered across the cards on his fingertips as they reasserted their place. Yes, Master! Black Magician Girl chirped, snapping her fingers and pulling her tiny staff from the void. A pink cluster of light pulsed at its tip, brimming with power. Super Magic Power Wave Cannon, Blades of Chaos, Ice Cavalry, Roar. 4 attacks launched almost simultaneously toward Lullaby, who stood glaring like a living target. The forest lit up with a thunderous explosion as searing flames and a blast of hot wind washed over the trees. Chapter 48, Final Winner, 2-in-1. Wait, didn't you say we were going for the finishing blow? Why are you going all out right away? Looking at you lot, I feel like the real monsters are us. Lucy stared at the demon's body, charred and smoking, and felt a pang of pity for a heartbeat. Then 4 figures streaked past her, gusting wind in their wake and charging straight at Lullaby. Chess, Urza, Natsu, and Gray refused to yield, pouring their magic into one coordinated assault. Magic circles flared across Lullaby's body, each eruption of power sending chaotic, violent shockwaves through the clearing. Of course, first come, first served. A pink streak of light hovered beside Lucy. Black Magician Girl sat astride her staff, making a playful V sign. By the way, Lucy, aren't you going to join in? Ah, haha, I don't have any usable celestial spirits today. I see, then I'll go first. I can't hold Master back. With that, Black Magician Girl shot forward, her magic converging on Lullaby's head. The next instant, there was a thunderous boom as the blast detonated. Black Magician Girl is monstrous too, Lucy blurted, embarrassed. As fellow blondes, the comparison stung her novice pride. Hey, Lucy, you're practically foaming at the mouth. You want to join them, don't you? Happy produced a small grilled fish from the pouch at his back and teased her. Lucy accepted the fish with a small smile, hesitated a beat, then backhanded it onto Happy's head. Join who exactly? She pointed toward the continuing explosions and cursed. If you want me dead, just be straightforward. No beating around the bush. And I've never heard that grilled fish restores magic power. Wow, suddenly Lucy's clever. I thought you'd gobble it up like a fool. Happy rubbed his head and smirked. I might have added a little pervy chili sauce in there. You're impossible, you dead cat. Just as a fuming Lucy picked up the fish to retaliate, a brilliant purple light flared before her. Lullaby, already badly battered, suddenly erupted in rage. It pushed Chess and the others back with a sweeping aura, threw its head back, and unleashed a mournful cry. The sound seemed toxic. Wherever it passed, plants withered and yellow leaves spun down from the trees. Not good. Cover your ears, the soul-reaping curse. Goldmine, Quattro Cerberus's guildmaster, shouted. Everyone clamped their hands over their ears. Lucy and Happy, nearest the front, were hit first. The piercing, unnatural tones stabbed at their palms and made their eardrums throb. Deathly aura washed over the clearing. Ha! Whether pestilential flies or guildmasters, turned to withered bones under my flute's song. Lullaby laughed with awful arrogance, put its thick arms to its mouth as though to play a flute, and began to blow. Only a sputtering, constipated sound echoed through the forest. Nothing happened. What's going on? Where's my glorious cursed song? Lullaby stared with disbelief. Its body, riddled with holes, leaked noise like diarrhea from the gaps in its skin. The guildmasters had been watching closely. Look, the holes on its body. So that was the source. As its core for the flute sound, it got smashed by the magic earlier. Of course it can't activate the curse. Sharp-eyed veterans had already spotted the problem. Lucy spread her hands and seized the moment to complain mercilessly. Lucy, I'm hungry. When are we going back to eat? Happy's teasing was like a blade to Lullaby's pride. Ah, damn it! Damn it! Lullaby froze for a beat, then went crimson with fury and kicked the surrounding mountaintops in rage. Huge and hot-headed. Are all the demons in Zeref's book like this? Some guildmaster grumbled. Humiliated, Lullaby gathered magic in its mouth and unleashed an extremely concentrated beam toward where Lucy and the guildmasters stood. The attack arrived suddenly. The beam filled Lucy's vision. Not good. Gray reacted to cast instant molding magic, but Black Magician Girl, still perched beside him in a cute pose, called out, "Don't worry, Gray. Master already laid a trap card there." In the split second of their exchange, Lullaby's beam crashed through the clearing and the earth shattered like foam. Then, 2 steps in front of Lucy, where Chess had been standing, a glowing magic circle ignited. A trap card rose from its center and unfolded. The mighty trap card, Sacred Barrier, Mirror Force. A dazzling white light washed the sky and ground and condensed into an unbreakable holy barrier. Lullaby's beam slammed into it. Winds howled and the earth quaked. Rocks were tossed into the air and ground to dust in the storm of energy. Lucy watched, breath quickening. Inside the barrier, she felt no tremor at all. But the defense wasn't done. As the attack subsided, ripples ran across the surface of the barrier and, growing stronger, the white light surged outward in a counterattack. It rained down on Lullaby like a violent storm. "What is this?" "This is Chess's card magic, duelist soul, pure terror," Happy said, suddenly adopting the tone of a commentator. Predicting enemy movement and burying cards, when the foe attacks, the trap activates and hits them hard. Sacred Barrier, Mirror Force reflects attacks completely, as long as it doesn't exceed Chess's magic limit. "Wait, this is card magic?" Lucy exclaimed. In her picture, a card mage was someone like Canna. Burying traps before a battle even started was unexpected. She pictured battling Chess, an opponent who could plant monster cards, magic cards, and traps that could trigger any time. There would be no chance of winning. Fighting Chess is a nightmare. You can't just worry about monster abilities and magic effects. You also have to watch for traps. Happy's expression turned serious. "Lucy, remember that." "Why are you saying it like it's important?" "Because it might be useful when you challenge Chess later." "Thanks so much." "So in your mind, I'm some brave, motivated warrior, huh?" Lucy extended a finger, aghast at her own cowardice. The idea of facing Chess was absurd. The guildmasters watched the display of power with mixed awe and resentment. Makarov hid a smug little grin, savoring the victory Fairytale had scored. The smoke cleared and revealed Lullaby's hulking body pocked with holes. After the bombardment and those relentless follow-up attacks, fire, ice, blades, it had taken the full brunt of its own compressed beam. The demon swayed, its aura broken. "Damn it, mere humans, how dare you!" Rage and humiliation surged through it as it raised its broken fists. But before it could strike, a heavy thunk sounded behind it. A rock giant soldier, as tall as Lullaby, set a massive sword on its shoulder and stared coldly. At the same time, Natsu, Gray, and Urza launched themselves at the demon from 3 directions, magic flaring around them. Lullaby was badly hurt. The next blow would decide the final victor of this makeshift duel. If Lullaby had known what each of them was really thinking, "I won't lose to Chess," it might have regretted coming out of its flute for good. Boom! The 4 attacks collided and detonated. When the smoke rose and thinned, Lullaby was gone. In its place yawned a bottomless pit. "Ha!" As expected. Lucy stared blankly at the abyss and mumbled, still trying to process it, "So, who gets credit for the win here?" A faint scraping sound at her feet answered her. Lullaby had been forced back into its flute form. Lucy looked down and met the 3 eyes at the end of the cursed flute, still glowing faint red. "Ah, it's not dead yet! Lucy, kick it!" A prickling sensation ran across Lucy at the attention of those eyes. Instinctively, she leapt up and delivered a kick. Crack! The cursed flute, already at its limit, snapped into pieces. The red lights in its eyes flickered twice and then died. Silence fell over the clearing. "Damn it! Lucy actually snatched it." Natsu pounded the ground with both fists in frustration. "I should have used Ice Make Lance to freeze her and the flute." Gray sighed. "Miscalculation. I had my focus on Chess and the others and missed Lucy. That's a lesson." Urza propped her chin on her hand and made a dry summary of their failure. "Huh? Huh?" Lucy was still stunned, not entirely sure what had happened. A pink streak of light zipped in, and Black Magician Girl stowed her staff under her knees and landed lightly. "You gave that big guy the finishing blow," she announced with a smile. I'm not thrilled about it, but Lucy's the final winner. What? Winner? Me? Lucy's eyes widened. My heart is so dark. I said I wasn't joining in, but I was secretly waiting to snatch it. Dead cat, don't paint me that way. I'm not trying to be the winner, Lucy protested indignantly. She was sure Happy was getting back at her for bopping him with the fish. Chess dusted himself off and chuckled, raising a hand. To deliver the final blow like that, you have to admit Lucy was lucky. Lucy blushed at the rare compliment. Her name, Lucy, came from the guild where her parents first met. Love Lucky. Chess's remark felt almost sentimental. Woo-woo, Chess? Lucy got misty-eyed at his gentle explanation. So luck is part of strength. Lucy, no. Did you really believe Happy's nonsense just now? Chess shifted his tone. So, Lucy, how about we find a time to train? His hands flexed, his expression suddenly serious. If luck is part of strength, maybe Lucy could pull unexpected cards in a duel. He grinned at the thought. Chess, your look is scary. Lucy retreated a few steps, her earlier feeling of him being super gentle evaporating. Laughter and light banter filled the clearing as everyone relaxed. Far off, Makarov stared at the guild hall, which had been reduced to rubble. Tears welled and tracked down his wrinkled cheeks. Just when he'd managed to be stern, everything was blown apart again. His one attempt at toughness had been for nothing. Chapter 49. Dark Magician. Since the nearby train station had been destroyed, while Urza and the others were chasing the Dark Guild, the next day Chess and his group chose to return to Magnolia in a magical four-wheeled vehicle. During the trip in the Clover Grand Canyon, where it was all too easy to get lost, they had come across a village that had been transformed into monsters. After some effort, they finally made it back to Magnolia, and by then it was late at night and the crescent moon was rising. Another day full of adventures and strange sights. Lucy, having finished washing up, sat at her desk with a quill in hand, replaying the last 2 days in her mind. The strongest team, the Dark Guild, the demons from Zeref's book, the monster village. It was certainly interesting, but sometimes staying cozy in my room like this is really nice. She smiled to herself and returned to writing her novel with the quill. You really need to balance work and rest. The long journey had sapped even Natsu's seemingly inexhaustible energy. He had gone home to the cottage in the forest with Happy early. Urza had returned to the guild's female dormitory, dragging a large cart of luggage and insisting she needed to tidy things up properly, though Lucy wasn't sure whether tidy up meant cleaning or enforcing discipline. Lucy pictured Urza's stern expression and decided it was probably the latter. And then there's Chess. He and I parted ways by the river at the city edge. He should be asleep by now, right? Lucy thought, and her face flushed bright red as she remembered what Dark Magician Girl had joked about when they parted, warming Chess's bed. They really get along well. God, I want to know more about Chess's scandals. As those images crowded her mind, Lucy thought she heard her name called. Hey, Lucy! She clutched the manuscript to her chest and stood up, looking around. The events of recent nights had made her jittery. The house was silent and empty. Must be fatigue, she sighed. Then the floor trembled, and a muscular, humanoid bull with horns sprang from the ground. Moo! I sense it! Lucy is in danger. Taros, the Taurus star spirit, was in high spirits. His eyes had turned to hearts as they landed on Lucy. Startled, she fumbled for her celestial spirit key and brandished it at the lecherous spirit. You're the danger for appearing out of nowhere. Moo! In a flash of starlight, Taros, having made his point, was unceremoniously sent back into the star spirit world. Lucy lowered the key and muttered, Honestly, none of them are easy to deal with. Lucy, can you hear me? Her nerves hadn't fully settled when that voice whispered by her ear again. This time she recognized it. She moved to the window that looked out on the street, pushed the sash open, and looked across the moonlit river. On the second-floor window of the building opposite sat Chess, casually perched on the sill and waving at her. It really is you! Lucy froze, then the voice beside him cried, Hey, Lucy, good evening? Dark Magician Girl's head popped out and she waved, bright as ever. A few house lights flicked on nearby and Lucy's cheeks burned. Stop shouting! It's embarrassing! The heat of mortification hit her. She yanked the curtain closed and bolted out of the door, crossing the bridge and arriving at Chess's house as fast as she could. Dark Magician Girl is fine because she's cute. But Chess, this is harassment, doing this late at night, she started, breathless and half angry the moment she stepped inside. Ha ha ha, I just had something to ask you and you're nearby, so I called, Chess said, smiling as he prepared a cup of hot tea. Admittedly, it was a little direct. Lucy accepted the tea politely and sat down opposite him. Being cute doesn't excuse you. You should at least apologize for disturbing me. Dark Magician Girl was sitting very upright on the sofa, her expression oddly tense and wholly unlike her usual bubbly self. Lucy blinked in surprise. Before she could process it, she laughed at the contrast and accidentally spit her tea across the room. The cup's contents landed squarely on Chess's face. Chess wiped his face with a calm smile. Dark Magician Girl still maintained her stiff posture, but her large eyes twitched as if trying to send a secret signal. Lucy caught a glimpse of that look and followed its direction to the corner of the hall. A stern man in a dark purple robe stood there with his arms crossed, a long staff in one hand. He was tall and straight, and the air around him thrummed with raw magical power. Lucy felt it wash over the room like a tide, deep, concentrated magic power. He wore the same style of robes and staff as Dark Magician Girl. This had to be the master she'd mentioned. He didn't look like someone you could easily befriend. Sensing the sudden tension, Chess stood and came over, smiling as he patted the man on the shoulder. This is Lucy, the girl I told you about. She's not very strong yet and can be a bit ditzy, but she's my companion. Maybe you could help her improve. At the guild earlier, Dark Magician Girl had promised she could introduce her master to guide Lucy. It was Chess's idea as well. He wanted Lucy to have special training. Whether she could truly awaken her full potential was another matter, but giving her direction was important. In the original story, Lucy had been horribly unlucky, always the one who got beaten up, and Chess wanted to prevent that fate here. The Dark Magician himself was a sage who had immersed himself in magic power cultivation for countless years. Even though Chess's current magic power wasn't enough to reach titles like Black Magic Priest or Five-Array Magician, the Dark Magician's fundamental understanding of magic was profound. The paths of magic power might differ between the fairy tale world and the Yu-Gi-Oh world, but the underlying principles were similar enough that Dark Magician's knowledge could still be invaluable. Chess had no doubts about that. From a purely magical perspective, Dark Magician could have been like half a master to him, someone who could have saved him many detours when he first transmigrated. The other members of the guild had already received guidance from the Dark Magician to varying degrees, and they all respected him for it. Lucy looked from Chess to the Dark Magician and felt a mix of apprehension and hope. This meeting might change everything. Chapter 50. You are Lucy Hartfilia? Seeking. Aha! Ahaha! At Chess's introduction, which clearly had no good intentions, Lucy felt her vision go black. Who introduces their companion as that guy, and ridiculously weak, and calling her silly on top of that was downright rude. What made it worse was that she had no comeback. Chesky, I appreciate you trying to lighten the mood, but I do not like your tone, she thought, fuming silently. Opposite her, the Black Magician gave a small nod, lowered his arms, and walked slowly forward to greet her. Hello, I am the Black Magician. Hello, I'm Lucy, she managed, forcing an awkward smile that looked as short as it sounded. This kind of blunt personality was always hard for her to handle. I heard from Master that you use magic that summons celestial spirits from another world, correct? The Black Magician asked. If it's a summoning type like my Master's, the user's magic power is absolutely crucial, Chess said. Besides magic power, one's physique, the speed of opening the gate, and the choice of which celestial spirit to send into battle are all important factors. The Black Magician rested one hand on his chin, considering briefly, then looked Lucy squarely in the eye. Show me your celestial spirit magic. Huh, that cut straight to the chase. Lucy blinked, frozen for a moment, startled. She had been trying to think of some light topic to break the awkwardness. She hadn't expected the Black Magician to toss that distance out the window entirely. She'd overthought it. Yes, Mr. Black Magician, she said, compelled by the invisible pressure in the room. She added a more respectful title when she straightened. Then she glanced down at the celestial spirit keys at her waist and panicked inwardly over which spirit to summon. Virgo? With that staff in the Black Magician's hand, he'd probably comment on it. Taurus? The pervy bull was a definite no. Plu? Cute, but not impressive. Aquarius? Aquarius's angry, exhausted face flashed before her. Absolutely not. After mentally discarding one by one, Lucy's eyes brightened as she settled on the safest choice. Open, gate of the clock, horologium. The silver key turned between her fingers and the magic circle flickered to life. With a soft ding-dong, horologium appeared, a grandfather clock with long, skinny black hands and thin legs. Chess peered at it with curiosity. Though only a silver spirit, horologium's strange resistance to damage and calm demeanor had earned him respect among stronger celestial spirits. Lucy, however, hadn't chosen him for that reason. As an older, steady spirit, he would be less likely to embarrass her. Lucy-sama, it's 8:36 p.m. now, the clock swingingly announced. Horologium, I didn't ask you to come out and tell the time. Lucy waved her hands in front of her chest, trying to get the spirit to pay attention to the present mood. Oh, on the Kiltina continent, it's 7 p.m., Horologium added. Lucy, how embarrassing. After a round of introductions, Horologium finally understood the situation and offered proper greetings to Chess and the others. The Black Magician immediately began asking Horologium questions about celestial spirit magic and had Lucy demonstrate her magic several times. Then he retreated to the deck and quietly sketched out a targeted training plan. Magic power had always been Lucy's weak point. If she could increase it, even without forcing open a second magic source, she'd be eligible to learn star map history, the legendary stellar magic, and might be able to wear the celestial spirit robe sooner, which would let her harness her spirit's power more fully. If Lucy reached the level of an S-rank mage, she certainly wouldn't draw bad cards anymore. The thought made a hopeful smile tug at the corner of Chess's mouth. Ah, there it is! Chesky's scary smile, someone teased. Lucy, who just started to relax because the Black Magician had left, instantly felt alert again. As much as she wanted to thank Chess and the Black Magician girl for looking out for her, a sense of conspiracy prickled at her. Yay! Master's finally gone, Black Magician girl sighed, collapsing on the sofa like a smudge of pink goo, completely discarding any semblance of a cute, upright posture. Lucy felt herself relax along with her and flopped onto the sofa too. Chess could never hurt her. At worst, he'd give her a good pounding in a sparring match. Although they hadn't known each other long, Lucy trusted Chess completely, except for the part about potentially getting launched across a field during training. Oh, right. I remember. The lullaby I met in Kuriboh town. Wasn't she a demon from the Black Magician Zaref's book? Lucy suddenly recalled, eyes widening. Could it be that you, Mr. Black Magician? Don't read too much into it. There's absolutely no connection, Chess said, sipping his tea. Even he, as a transmigrant, found the coincidences strange. Similar names and titles, long lives, and both being users of dark magic that could so easily snuff out life. He didn't know whether the Black Magician could break Zaref's undying curse from the god of Anxarum. He'd asked Black Magician about it before, but without having seen it firsthand, Black Magician couldn't give a definite answer. I was startled when I first heard the title, too. Black Magician girl twirled her teacup on the table with delicate fingers, looking adorable as she listened. I see. Lucy breathed out a soft sigh. Actually, ever since I met you, there's been something I wanted to ask, Chess said suddenly. Give up. I'm not telling you my measurements, Lucy replied, immediately on guard. Chess set his teacup down slowly, folded his hands, and traded his relaxed expression for a rare solemnity. Seeing him like that, Lucy had a premonition she was about to hear something serious, and her nerves tightened. The words that followed hit her like a bolt. 2 years ago, during an escort mission on a business trip, I think I saw you, Chess said. You're the young lady of the Heartfilia Trading Company who's famous across the kingdom of Fiore. Lucy Heartfilia? Chapter 51. Brother and Sister, Chess's Promise. Lucy fell silent, her face a mix of shock and fear. Hearing the name Heartfilia again pulled up memories she didn't want to face and sent a wave of panic through her. She had known the truth would come out someday, but Chess revealing her identity now still caught her off guard. She lowered her head, clinging to her skirt as if it could hold her together. She had hoped she could keep it hidden a little longer. "I'm sorry, Chess," she whispered, voice small and full of blame. "I lied to everyone." Chess waved a hand casually and smiled. "Don't worry about it. Aside from that idiot Natsu and his non-stop rants about Igneel, who in the guild doesn't have a few secrets?" Lucy loosened her grip on her skirt, but unease still clouded her eyes. She feared that being a Heartfilia would drive a wedge between her and the fairy tale she had fought so hard to join, a family she had finally come to love. "You don't need to look so worried," Black Magician Girl said, springing to her feet and punching a fist into her palm in support. "If Natsu and the others try to push you away over this, I'll make Master beat them up good." That struck a chord. Lucy took a steadying breath and, after a moment, found some of her spirit again. "Thank you, Black Magician Girl." "Hey, you're welcome." Chess rolled his eyes in mock protest. "Leaving your own master as collateral, really appropriate, loose." He brewed some tea and handed her a steaming cup. "So, Lucy, why did you give up being a rich young lady and join Fairy Tale?" He added casually, "You don't have to tell me if you don't want to. I'm just curious." Lucy stared at her reflection trembling in the tea. After a few seconds, she found the courage to answer. "Heartfilia Manor, Heartfilia Castle, is a place with no warmth. Granny Stat and the butler were kind, but my father, Jude Heartfilia, only cared about business and status. He treated my life like a bargain, arranging marriages, calling them good fortune. I couldn't live like that, always under a cold, suffocating rule. I couldn't accept an arranged future, so I ran away and joined Fairy Tale. I've wanted to be part of it since I was a child." Black Magician Girl clenched her fists, outraged on Lucy's behalf. "What a terrible father. He deserves 2 punches." Chess, who had known most of this already, sipped his tea with composure. "If you don't want to go back, don't. Treat the guild as your real home. No one can force you if you don't want it, least of all your father." He swung his leg over the arm of the chair and settled into a more comfortable posture, but his voice hardened with resolve. "If your family ever causes trouble, send me a request as a client. Dismantling homes, I'm a pro." Tears filled Lucy's eyes. She forced a smile and tried to sound normal. "Breaking up homes is extreme, and I couldn't afford the reward for an S-class request." "It's not just a request, it's a promise," Chess said with a sigh, scratching his head like someone pretending to be troubled. "I can't just get you to call me Big Brother for free, can I? Big Brother protecting his little sister. What could be more natural?" Lucy thought of the past. How in the original timeline she'd been sealed on Tenru Island for 7 years and upon returning, discovered her father's sudden death. All he left were birthday letters full of regret and love. That hurried goodbye became an eternal regret, and she had cried then. Chess wouldn't let such a father-daughter pair drift into estrangement if he could help it. All he needed was a reason. An opportunity to give a fairy tale mage the justification to step in. The trust in Chess's smile and the sure support in Black Magician Girl's eyes made something inside Lucy crack, something she hadn't felt since her mother, Layla, died. For a long time, she had been alone. The girl who'd always tried to be strong couldn't hold back anymore. She clamped both hands over her face, and the tears came. "Master, you made Lucy cry," Black Magician Girl teased, then hurried over to comfort her. It didn't take long for Lucy to calm down. She wasn't fragile. She was just human. "Here, Lucy," Chess said, seizing the moment. He reached under the coffee table and pulled out a dumbbell he'd hidden there. "Before Black Magician Girl comes up with a specific plan, you can start training your physique with this. I was worried you wouldn't like it, so I asked Master to pick a pink one especially," Black Magician Girl said, flashing a peace sign and a smile. Lucy stared at the small pink dumbbell, then at the two of them, and through tears she couldn't help but laugh. "A dumbbell as a present? And a pink one? How presumptuous." She wiped her eyes sincere. "Still, thank you, Chess. I'll work hard." She took the slightly heavy dumbbell carefully with both hands. At that moment, Chess and Black Magician Girl exchanged grins that were far too guilty. Chess's smile stayed in place as he said, "No thanks, 30,000 J." "Huh?" Lucy's eyes went wide. 30,000 J? Still smiling, Chess was unbothered. Lucy slammed the dumbbell, the gift she'd cradled, down on the floor. So it wasn't a gift at all. They wanted payment. The impact made the floorboards howl and split into cracks. If this weren't Chess's house, the downstairs neighbors would be furious. We've already taken the item. If you don't pay, you might not be able to leave the door, Chess said dryly. This is forced sale. No, extortion, Lucy shouted. With Black Magician Girl as a witness, this is a perfectly ordinary transaction, Chess replied. Lucy looked at Black Magician Girl like a drowning woman grabbing for a life preserver. Black Magician Girl turned her face away, whistled, and let her golden bangs hide the smile twitching at her lips. Lucy collapsed onto the couch. She'd almost forgotten they were in on it together. If she'd known the water was this deep, she never would have let Horologium go back so soon. 30,000 J was almost half a month's rent. There was no way she could pay that. Chess was a monster who could even take Natsu down easily. After thinking it over, honest Lucy resorted to her trump card, seduction. She arranged her expression, hopped up on the coffee table, struck what she believed was a seductive pose, blinked with ridiculous heart-shaped eyes, and pouted in a sugary voice. Kind brother Chess, please let me have this this adorable pink dumbbell. We're like siblings, right? If you can't do that, maybe a discount? Later that night, Lucy stomped back to her rented apartment, furious. She muttered tunelessly to herself. That bastard Chess, he only gave me a 2,000 J discount in the end. Give me back all the feelings you taunted me with, then go die. Heartless merchant, perverted battle maniac, forever single card guy. Chapter 52, Chase vs. Urza, seeking follow-up reading. At Chess's house, Chess and the Black Magician Girl stood at the window, watching Lucy stalk off, still practically radiating resentment. They exchanged a smile. Lucy gets even cuter when she's all fired up, Chess said with a small chuckle. The Black Magician Girl sighed. I just can't stand to see a girl cry. She leaned her forearm on the windowsill, head tilted, watching Chess with a blank look. So, Master, you made her mad, huh? She murmured. The pink dumbbell had originally been meant as a gift. She hadn't expected Chess to suddenly change his mind and accept Lucy's money. As the keeper of Chess's small treasury, she knew exactly how little he actually had. Ha ha ha, you were playing along with me before, weren't you? Chess laughed. He didn't care about Lucy's cash. The whole thing had been the quickest way to help her snap out of her sulk. Because you're my master, the Black Magician Girl replied with a faint smile. After hearing about Lucy's day, she had a better understanding of the normally bright and sharp-tongued girl. I didn't force you, all right? Don't pin this on me. Still, Chess teased, you must have been moved by how sexy Lucy looked just now, right? Who knows? Humph, I'm very angry right now. If you flatter me, maybe I'll reluctantly let you warm my bed. You're trying to get everything, aren't you? No wonder Lucy called you a dead card player. Die! With a pop, the girl dissolved into motes of light and vanished. Chess rubbed the bump on his head and sighed helplessly. Life was never easy. The next morning, Lucy woke with a start, staring up at the ceiling in confusion. She just had a dream, probably influenced by Chess's words the night before. Chess had become a giant monster, punched the Hartfilia house and the back hill away, and was then locked up by the council. The branch of the council had flown off too, and Chess stood on the ruins like a demon king, laughing maniacally. That was scary. Thank goodness it was just a dream, she murmured, rubbing her temples. She slapped her cheeks, forcing herself back to her usual cheerful energy. I need to find a good job today. If I don't, I won't be able to pay rent. She rolled out of bed muttering to herself and headed into the living room, and froze. A naked pervert was sitting on her sofa like he owned the place. Yo, Lucy, good morning, Gray said, grinning and holding up the pink dumbbell. Surprising. I didn't know you had such strange hobbies. Hobbies my foot. Chess forced that on me. It cost me 28,000 J. 28,000. Lucy snapped, face going deadly serious. She turned into a fanged, indignant fury. Breaking and entering is one thing, but can you please not take off your clothes in my house? Huh? No. I took my clothes off before I came in, Gray said with total sincerity. Isn't that the point? Get out if you have nothing to do. I came here because I do have something to do. Gray set the pink dumbbell down slowly and looked at the bristling Lucy. Remember Urza agreeing to Natsu's challenge when we first teamed up? They're about to start. That's not worth watching. Natsu's just going to lose in an instant. The main thing is, Chess and Urza are scheduled to fight. It's a rare S-class showdown in the guild. Urza and Chess? Lucy's eyes lit up. She abandoned the argument about Gray's illegal entry, dashed to clean up, and hurried out. Friendly sparring between S-class mages not only sharpened them, but gave everyone else a chance to learn. Makarov wasn't going to stop the fight. He encouraged it. He arranged for the matches to happen out at the outskirts of Magnolia, so the town wouldn't be disturbed. As for Natsu, no one was paying him much mind, except his partner, Happy. When Lucy and Gray reached the agreed clearing, a thick crowd had already gathered, familiar faces and many she didn't know. Fairy Tale was no small guild. Besides the core members, there were lots of peripheral ones. Having only joined a few days ago, Lucy couldn't recognize everyone. In the center of the plain, with the crowd cleared wide around them, Chess and Urza faced each other, both radiating an oppressive magical pressure. Makarov stood before the crowd, preparing to declare the match open, when Natsu suddenly leapt out and barreled between Chess and Urza. "Wait, I was first," he yelled. "Hey, Chess, get out of the way! If anyone's fighting, it's me first!" Natsu shouted, puffed up with bravado. The guild members exchanged weary looks and muttered, "Is he an idiot? There's a limit to how reckless you can be," Macau grumbled. "Want to make a bet? Although the odds will probably be depressing," Wakaba said. Kana gulped. "Dummy, wait until Urza and Chess finish. Maybe there's still a 0.1% chance. But the swords flying out of Natsu's head are really sharp." "Sharp means courage, right?" Lucy couldn't help but snicker at the strange conversation. "It seems everyone underestimates Natsu," she said to Gray. "He is part of the strongest team. The gap can't be that huge, can it?" She frowned, puzzled. "Strongest team? Who even came up with that title?" Gray replied, dismissive. Mira, who'd been smiling, flinched and covered her face, suddenly upset. "It was Mira!" someone exclaimed, and Gray, startled, tried awkwardly to smooth things over. Meanwhile, Natsu charged with his fire dragon's iron fist, heat waves roaring. Urza moved with calm precision. She evaded his attack and struck back with a punch that landed square on Natsu's gut. He went down flat, wind knocked out of him, and scrambled up a white flag of surrender. "There's no helping you, Natsu," Urza said. "Fine. I'll handle you first." "Aye, it's already over," someone cheered as Happy raised his arm, enjoying the show. Natsu was hauled away, still groaning. Only Chess and Urza remained in the clearing. Chess laughed. "Ha ha ha! You sent Natsu flying with one punch. As expected, Urza." "If it were any other day, messing with Natsu would be fun," Chess said, becoming serious. "But my opponent now is you. If I don't conserve my magic, I might lose badly." Urza's face was calm, but her words were honest. She had fought Chess at full strength a year ago. They had been almost evenly matched then, neither gaining a clear advantage. That was why she had told Mira later that she might not be able to match Chess. It wasn't that he had been holding back before. His rate of growth was simply terrifying. He'd been beaten by Natsu and Gray when he first joined the guild. A year later, he had improved by leaps and bounds. Even though Urza had also grown, she couldn't claim absolute confidence. Still, the Iron Queen felt a rising surge of battle lust. "Come on, Chess, show me how much you've grown this past year," she challenged. "That's exactly what I want to find out, Urza," Chess replied. With a thunderous impact, the two of them erupted in overwhelming magical auras almost at the same time. The S-Class versus S-Class battle had begun. Chapter 53. Knight versus Knight. Powerful magic collided, whipping up a hurricane that ripped the ground apart and sent grass, roots, and shattered stones spinning into the air. When the storm subsided and the debris fell back, a cold light flashed. Urza, clad in her usual armor, struck first, a clean sword swing as she charged at Chess with incredible speed. Chess stood his ground, a magic circle whirling on his fingertip. He flung a card toward Urza. It shimmered with white light, and a valiant figure in steel armor leaped from it, sword in her left hand and a crimson shield in her right, meeting Urza head-on. Clang! Sparks flew as their blades rang together. "Is that Queen Knight?" someone in the guild called, recognizing the armored woman locked in a stalemate with Urza. "Queen Knight's strength seems even greater than before," another voice added. Urza held her longsword steady, neutralizing the pressure and following the newcomer with her eyes. "My master's magic has grown, little Urza," Queen Knight said calmly, smiling. "Then what about this?" Urza replied. She raised her empty left hand, drew another sword from her magic space, and slashed at Queen Knight's side. Queen Knight narrowed her eyes and lifted her crimson shield. There was a dull thud. Urza, instead of finishing the downward slash, suddenly changed course. She lifted her slender right leg, steel-clad boot striking Queen Knight in the abdomen. The armor absorbed the initial impact, but Urza gave a sharp shout and pushed through. Queen Knight was driven back, scattered, her footing lost for a moment. Urza gripped her sword in a reverse hold and stepped forward to press the advantage, but something made her glance up. A shadow dropped from overhead, followed by a fierce golden blade. Boom! The incoming strike cleaved into the earth, throwing up a wall of stone and choking dust. Urza flipped back with several graceful rolls, holding her sword horizontally before her. Standing beside Queen Knight was a broad-shouldered man in dazzling gold armor, sword and shield at the ready. Queen Knight, King Knight, next is... Urza's eyes narrowed toward Chess, who held a card poised behind the three of them. As she suspected, Chess summoned King Knight and Queen Knight, and then could call Prince Knight at 0 cost. If the three knights assembled, her current armor might be insufficient. Urza had fought the three knights before and knew their style well. Re-equip, Blackwing armor. A crimson magic circle flared, and Urza's armor shifted to a cooler jet black. Bat-like wings unfurled from her back, her high ponytail tightened. Blackwing, Moonflash. The Blackwing armor heightened her speed, almost letting her skim the ground. In an instant, she was before the three knights. The Prince Knight at the front planted his feet and raised his heavy shield to block, but Blackwing increased the destructive force of a single strike. The shield held for only a heartbeat before Urza's sharp black blade cleaved it into countless fragments. At the same time, cold light flashed from both sides. Queen Knight and King Knight attacked together, their precious swords arcing down from sharp angles to close off Urza's escape. Urza remained composed. She tapped the ground lightly and leapt, magic circles igniting on her legs as her steel boots transformed into a pair of long swords, forcibly parrying the blows of Queen and King. Clang! Sparks sprayed. Re-equip, flight armor. A white light shimmered. The long swords became light leather boots. Animal-like ears appeared atop Urza's head as she stepped on the blades of Queen Knight and King Knight, using them as springboards. Accelerating with the flight armor, she blurred past the three knights and aimed straight for Chess in the rear. Through the magic fluctuations, she sensed Chess preparing a trap card. As an S-rank mage of the same guild, she knew how dangerous his card magic, Duelist Soul, could be. She wanted to close the distance before he could set his card securely. The scenery peeled away as she closed in. Chess, calm, revealed the card between his fingers. Withered bone wings unfolded, and a ferocious curse dragon shot from the magic circle, its gaping maw blazing with hellish light. Overwhelming fire surged outward, swallowing Urza's small figure and sending scorching waves across the plain. It was the curse dragon's ultimate, Hellfire. Urza, Lucy, watching from the sidelines, gasped as the air around them heated rapidly. Compared to the earlier Lullaby extermination battle, Chess's Duelist Soul seemed even more terrifying. Don't worry, Lucy. If it's a flame attack... Mira's smile was calm, the firelight reflected in her eyes. The others in the guild were similarly unfazed, their spirits even buoyed. Lucy couldn't follow their composure, but Urza answered with action. Whoosh! A vertical sword of light sliced the conflagration in two. Urza had re-equipped into a fiery red armor and now held the Emerald Sea King longsword, standing proud amid the blaze. That's right, Loki added. For flame attacks, use Flame Emperor armor for high fire resistance, and the Sea King sword counters fire. He spoke as if excited by the fight, unusually unbothered by Lucy, the celestial magician. You can do that? Lucy stared at Urza, astonished all over again by the variety of her armors and tactics. You'll be amazed later. Their battle has just begun, Gray said quietly. While they spoke, the three knights had already reformed and charged at Urza. She closed her eyes briefly, took a steadying breath, and when she opened them, two pairs of white steel wings spun into being behind her, ringing with magic. Re-equip, Heaven's Wheel armor. Heaven's Wheel, Blade Storm. Swordlight attacked in a whirl of blades. Shadows of steel crossed the field in chaotic patterns. Bang, bang, bang. The sounds of precious swords and shields breaking rang out. Under the onslaught, the three knights' bodies were struck and scattered into countless points of light. Urza looked down at her twin swords and the armor around her. They, too, had taken hits and were beginning to crack and fracture inch by inch. She gave the dissipating knights a faint, respectful smile. Next, it's Cursed Dragon. Chapter 54. Be careful of Laxus falling from the sky. There was no time to mourn damaged swords and armor. Countless flying blades appeared densely behind Urza. With a single wave of her hand, the Heaven's Wheel armor activated. The flying swords transformed into streams of light that lashed at the cursed dragon in midair. Before it could be pierced by the hornet's nest of blades, the cursed dragon beat its wings and shattered into golden motes. Those motes evaded the dense sword light and converged high above, forming a dark, massive magic circle. Lightning flashed and thunder rolled. Black clouds swallowed the sun, and an oppressive aura pressed down on the whole area. A crackling bolt of electricity split the sky, and from within it stepped a towering skeleton demon, the 6-star high attack summoning of the demon. Urza's breathing hitched and her face went serious the moment she recognized the monster. The magic circle flared, but her re-equip was interrupted by the demon's rapid attack. In an instant, the furious sky unleashed a thick, blinding bolt of lightning. Urza, a longtime rival of this summon, reacted instantly and dodged to the side. Boom! The lightning struck the spot she had been standing, and a shower of electric arcs exploded outward, carving a charred, cratered pit. That was only the beginning. Boom, boom. The lightning struck again and again, forcing Urza to focus entirely on evasion. She moved like a crimson streak in a gale, fast, precise, swift. The fairy tale members watching from a distance felt breathless. Urza, the fairy queen, flickered through the storm of thunder and light. Wherever she passed, the sky roared, the ground cracked and pulverized, and dust billowed up. Is this really Urza's power? Lucy breathed, speechless at the apocalyptic scene. Even veterans who'd known Urza for years stared with wide eyes. None expected Chess and Urza to unleash such intensity. Macau, Kana, and the other experienced members had quietly slid to the back of the crowd, shielding Lucy and the newcomers in front. If they hadn't, they would have been struck by stray lightning. Everyone, fall back. Watch out for Laxus falling from the sky. Makarov called from the front, smiling as he raised a finger in warning. The next instant, a crimson gust swept by him, and lightning struck right where his finger had pointed. Boom! Makarov turned as black as soot. Damn Chess! Pay attention! Makarov shouted at Chess in the distance, furious. Mira laughed beside him, clearly enjoying the spectacle. Pushed to the edge, Urza finally seized an opening to finish her re-equip. Re-equip, she called. Lightning exploded overhead, but an expanding azure barrier blocked the leaping arcs. Urza's long crimson braid whipped in the hurricane as she materialized in Lightning Emperor armor, gripping the Lightning Emperor spear. After a few cool spins, the spear's tip gathered blue lightning and pointed at summoning of the demon. Azure lightning! Light cannon! She cried. The compressed lightning condensed into a blinding beam that tore through the void toward the summon. The demon, resistant to lightning itself, thrust an arm forward and used its own lightning to forcefully deflect the beam. The Azure Lightning light cannon swung 90 degrees, rammed through a distant mountaintop, and dissipated into the sky. Well done, Urza said, smiling in genuine praise. Summoning of the demon nodded, and then began to gather a concentrated, furious swell of magic, chanting a finishing move, Magic Descent Lightning. If that move lands, my Lightning Emperor armor won't hold, Urza thought, and re-equip light once more, illuminated her body. But before she could finish assessing, the ground in front of her shuddered violently. Cracks spidered out like veins. From the shattered earth, a massive stone soldier rose, blotting out the sun and casting an overwhelming shadow. At Chess's feet, a black vortex trap card had formed. He'd used it to summon another monster. The rock golem tore a giant stone greatsword from its shoulder and brought it down toward the tiny figure of Urza. Boom! The ground exploded under the blow, dust and debris flying everywhere. That was an incredibly heavy hit. Did Chess get it off? Gray muttered, arms crossed. At some point his clothes had mysteriously gone missing again, leaving him clinging to only a brief pair of underwear. Gray, your clothes. You took them off yourself, didn't you? Lucy snapped. But Makarov ignored their antics and kept his gaze fixed on the battlefield. No, Urza used that power, he said, answering the question everyone had. The rock golem's expression changed mid-attack. Its right arm and the giant stone sword cracked and then exploded with a groan. Chunks of rock rained down, striking the half-shield of Urza's adamantine armor. Behind that shield, electric arcs danced, and Urza's crimson hair whipped about as her eyes glinted. The golem's shock didn't last. It seized the greatsword in its remaining left arm, and in a reverse grip, swung it in a devastating arc from left to right. Urza narrowed her eyes and crouched, turning her head the instant the slash reached her. The stone blade swept past, shaving off a lock of her hair with its trailing sword energy. Urza steadied herself. A white weapon light flashed in her right hand, and she launched her counterattack. The spear in her grip cut through the swirling debris as she cried out and hurled the giant's armor's evil-shattering spear with all her strength. The spear punched through the rock golem with unstoppable momentum, plowed through its stone form, and continued on, borne by a fierce wind, striking summoning of the demon directly behind it. Chapter 55. All In. Lucy's choice. The spear of exorcism shattered every trace of darkness, an absolute counter to the summoning of the demon. The demon summoning struck squarely, dissolved at once. Not good. Urza's pupils narrowed. The instant the summoning of the demon vanished, she saw the faint smile at the corner of her opponent's mouth. The next moment, a pitch-black magic circle flared beneath her feet. Highly compressed demon descent thunder plummeted from the sky, smashing into the ground in a thunderous, explosive blast. When the dust settled and the chaos quieted, Urza stood on scorched earth, slightly breathing hard. Her armor lay broken, revealing the black underclothing that hugged her form. "Chess, you really don't want to take a loss, do you?" She sighed and walked slowly toward Chess. Though her Thunder Emperor armor had been destroyed, it had absorbed enough of the demon descent thunder to leave her largely unscathed, and Chess, having temporarily lost a few cards, still had plenty of magic power. In that exchange, neither had a clear advantage. "Urza, I guess the warm-up's over," Chess said with a smile. Two cards materialized at his fingertips, Black Magician Girl and another magic card with a floating gem. If this were a normal spar, it could have ended there. But Chess had a different goal. He wanted to claim a new card from Urza. "You're fired up," Chess continued, smiling. "Then I won't hold back." Urza, who had once planned to call it quits, only smiled calmly. Suddenly, her magic power surged, and a purgatorial aura exploded outward. This was just the warm-up? Lucy, listening from a distance, barely caught the exchange and stared at the ruined battlefield, her lips twitching. "Hey, Lucy, don't just stand there. That could get dangerous." Mira's voice came from behind. Lucy whipped around, startled. Without her noticing, everyone else had already stepped back, some even several hundred meters away. Realizing how exposed she'd been, Lucy hurried back to the main group. The onlookers were buzzing, arguing about who would win, Chess or Urza. "Urza, you've got this. Knock Chess down." "Chess, teach Urza what a real man can do. Urza'll win, no doubt." "Aye, Urza's the strongest." Lucy glanced at Happy, who was cheering for Urza louder than anyone. That surprised her. Happy usually hid in the background to enjoy the show, not join in headfirst. She told herself it was because Happy was loyal to a teammate in the strongest squad. "Kana, want to bet a round?" Kana, perched on a wine barrel, grinned. Lucy looked over and saw that everyone had put bets on the match. They were even on both sides. Curious, Lucy asked casually, "Who did Happy bet on?" "Kicked in 10,000 J on Urza," Kana replied. Lucy's face fell. So Happy wasn't cheering out of loyalty. He was backing Urza with a 10 grand bet. After a moment's thought, Lucy took out the rest of her money, 20,000 J, and all but shoved it into the pile for Chess. She was angry and wanted her money back from Happy with interest. "Go Chess! For all my stuff, win this!" she shouted, joining the frenzied cheering. From the battlefield, Urza shook her head, amused. "You can hear them even from here. They're as loud as ever." Chess grinned. "Good. Makes the fight more fun." Urza's expression hardened. Her materialized magic power flared. Her scarlet hair and pale blue skirt whipped in the surge. A massive magic circle bloomed, and her eyes turned blood red, wild. Dark, heavy armor coalesced around her, and a jagged two-handed sword formed in her hands, the blade striking the earth with quaking force. This was one of Urza's legendary armors, Purgatory Armor, said to be able to annihilate with a single casual blow. "This is how a fight should feel," Chess said, smiling. He flicked the card at his fingertips into the air. "My turn. Summon Black Magician Girl." Ta-da! Black Magician Girl struck a cute pose as she materialized. Chess didn't stop there. Activate the magic card, Sage's Stone. Sage's Stone was a chain-type magic card that, when Black Magician Girl was summoned, allowed Black Magician to be special summoned without consuming any magic power. Unlike directly summoning Black Magician, Sage's Stone used a linked summon that conserved energy, something Chess would usually avoid to keep things simple in battle, but in a friendly spar, he preferred to economize. A golden 5-pointed star magic circle traced itself in the air. Black Magician Girl reached out and tapped the crystal gem floating above it. A burst of light, and the Black Magician in a purple robe stepped out. "Long time no see, Mr. Black Magician," Black Magician Girl chirped. Under the Purgatory Armor, even Urza's voice sounded fierce. "Long time." Black Magician's words were few and measured. "Urza, you look intense. You look scary like that," Black Magician Girl blurted, catching the dangerous fluctuations of Urza's magic power. "So you guys, be careful." Urza raised her saw-toothed greatsword and swung. A razor wind slashed through the air. "Ha! Won't go easy just because it's Urza," Chess called back. Black Magician Girl braced a pink magical shield to block the hurricane. The master and apprentice exchanged a glance, understanding each other instantly. Black Magician gripped his staff as purple lightning danced along it and began to chant a potent spell. Black Magician Girl summoned her own staff, leapt onto it, and became a streak of light rushing toward Urza, buying time for her master's casting. Boom! A beam of light slammed into Urza, and Black Magician Girl was hurled backward, spinning, by the brutal force of the Purgatory Armor. Holding her skirt and gathering magic to steady herself, Urza saw the dark, menacing figure close in. She couldn't allow Black Magician Girl to build up any more power. She had to end this now. Purgatory Rip! Whoosh! The serrated greatsword blurred as it sliced through the air. Black Magician Girl had no time to raise a barrier. The blade seemed to grow and grow before her eyes. Crash! The shockwave tore a chaotic gash into the ground. Hats! Urza's face tightened. The expected sight of Black Magician Girl cleaved in two never appeared. Instead, 4 magicians' hats, each marked with a question mark, drifted into being, and the greatsword had only hit one of them. "Don't forget about me, Urza," Chess said with a grin, revealing the trap card he had set. Trap card, magic hat. Trigger an attack, and summon 4 hats that can conceal the caster for evasion, at the risk of the true body being exposed. Too bad, you guessed wrong. Black Magician Girl sprang out from the outermost hat, staff raised, crackling with purple lightning. "Then take this." Black Magician burst. Boom! The magic orb detonated in midair, sending Urza tumbling and slamming her into the ground. The blast was powerful, but Urza grit her teeth and used the other half of the adamantine armor's shield to absorb most of the force. Black Magician Girl had expected that, though. The burst was a feint. She whipped her staff, and a pink chain of magical energy shot out, wrapping around Urza and pinning her tight. "Master, now!" The Master Black Magician nodded and stepped forward, swinging her magic-laden staff at the bound Urza. "Black Magician!" A dense energy orb, far exceeding the apprentice's power, launched, distorting space and radiating a crushing aura. Boom! The compressed energy exploded outward as a black-purple beam that ripped into the sky and made the earth tremble. "Yay! We won!" Before the tumult settled, Black Magician Girl floated and flashed a victory sign. "Be careful, you idiot," Chess barked, but it was too late. From deep within the choking smoke, a streak of blue lightning surged and impaled half of Black Magician Girl's body. "Oh dear, I was careless." She scratched her head with an embarrassed smile, then dissolved into a spray of light and returned to the card deck. "That blockhead never outgrows her careless habits," Chess muttered, shaking his head. The remaining Black Magician on the field spun her staff into a ready stance and faced Urza. Urza, clad now in a light purple sleeveless kimono and wielding a long guandao, had used the unusual flexibility of the faraway robe to slip free of the chain and evade the Black Magician. With a powerful swing of her guandao and a sudden low crouch that unleashed explosive leg strength, she charged straight for the Black Magician. "Re-equip." Armor of the Stars. At the last second, she re-equipped, driving her foot into the ground to alter her trajectory and bypass the Black Magician to head straight for Chess at the back. The Black Magician hovered, momentarily surprised to see Urza aim for the master. She glanced at Chess. His expression was unreadable, hesitated, then dissolved into motes of light, choosing not to pursue. This wasn't a desperate life-or-death duel. The final strike should be left to the master. "Come on, Chess, finish this!" Urza roared as she pushed out the longsword of the Armor of the Stars, pouring all her magic into an electric, luminous field. Stars Light Particle Sword. Just what I wanted. Try to break my defense, Urza. Chess waved his hand and revealed the last face-down card. Holy Barrier, Mirror Force. Hooah! Axe 2. They shouted in unison as the electro-optical blade met the Holy Light Barrier. The collision was cataclysmic. Like colliding meteors, the impact exploded outward. A roar rolled across the outskirts, the shock sweeping 1,000 meters. The light was so blinding, onlookers from Fairy Tale could barely open their eyes. The energy storm raged for a full minute. When the ground finally stilled and the dust cleared, Lucy craned her neck and stared in shock. A vast circular pit, more than 10 meters deep, had been carved into the earth. Shattered white motes of light still danced in its center. Chess and Urza stood on opposite rims, their clothes torn, chests heaving, both panting and battered. "What? Chess's barrier actually broke?" someone cried. "This is the first time I've seen a holy barrier fail. Does that mean Urza won?" "No, look, Urza's Armor of the Stars is shattered too." "Are you kidding? After all that, it's a draw? What kind of monsters are those two?" Fairy Tale erupted into debate and argument. Demon Mira stepped forward slowly, eyes locked on Chess and Urza, and spoke with an unnervingly calm voice. "Chess won." "Eh?" The crowd went silent. Lucy's joy surged. If it was only to announce the result, there was no need to show such intimidation. Chess won? She had won. A triumphant grin lit her face, and the bettors who had backed Chess erupted in cheers. Happy and the others, however, hung their heads, miserably accepting defeat. They opened their mouths to argue with Mira's hasty declaration, but when they looked up and saw her terrifying demon form, their protests died. Makarov, the most senior, stepped in and explained. From the final state, Chess and Urza appear to have drawn. Both barriers and armors were broken. But don't forget, Urza's Armor of the Stars has significant resistance to light magic. To break Chess's holy barrier, only one thing could do it: magic power that exceeds his. When one side's element weakens and the other strengthens, elemental counter-effects can cancel a slight difference in output, but that doesn't change overall power. Chess's magic was greater. Elemental counter-effects between magicians can be offset by experience, speed, strategy. Those factors can matter in life-or-death fights. But in terms of a spar, Chess had the advantage. Makarov sighed, partly in disbelief and mostly with pride at how much the two youngsters had grown. Happy and the gang's last hope crumbled. They accepted their losses and waved goodbye to their wagers. Lucy, ecstatic, ran to Happy and triumphantly waved the banknotes. Winning money wasn't the point. Finally getting one up on this cat felt incredible. Chess was all smiles, too. He'd been lucky earlier to draw a card off a full-powered Urza. It had been a monster card, a 1-star, but in value it could rival even a god card. Its name read, Sealed One's Right Arm. Sealed One's Right Arm, a mysterious card of unknown significance. Complete liberation will grant unimaginable, boundless power. Single card effect can gradually increase attack power in battle. From the card story. With this, maybe I can really summon a battle-ready fist. Chess stared at the dark gold card suspended in the depths of his consciousness and let out a low breath. He didn't know how far its practical effect could be pushed. He needed time and a chance to study it properly. If he could gather all 5 pieces and summon the legendary dark magician Exodia, supposedly greater than a god, what would that even look like? Lost in thought, Chess suddenly felt his vision dim and was forced back onto a broad, unyielding chest. Urza, back in her usual armor, had quietly appeared beside him and pressed the side of his head against her steel cuirass with practiced ease. "It's been a while since I had such a satisfying match," she said, smiling. Her smile was mischievous, like someone who'd pulled off a small conspiracy. "I really enjoyed that, Chess." "My head, so hard." Chess's skull rang. He'd been so distracted by the thrill of his new card that he hadn't bothered to shield his brow with magic power. Urza's gesture was one of companionship and affection, and in any other context it would have been pleasant. But damn it, it hurt. Fighting you now is a little tougher than before, Urza admitted, releasing him. Chess rubbed his reddening forehead and said seriously, "At the very end there, you held back, didn't you?" "Did I?" Urza glanced at him coolly. "If I had actually pierced the holy shield, you'd have just summoned Kuriboh, and it wouldn't have changed the result." Having fought Chess enough times to know his card tactics, she wasn't surprised. Chess grinned. "Not bad, Urza. You have a knack for card games. Why don't you stop with requip magic and join the world of card players?" He opened his arms in mock invitation. Of course it was a joke. Besides, you never summoned your strongest 8-star Chaos Black Magician, and you didn't use power-boosting cards like Pot of Greed. Urza rested her chin on her hand, completely ignoring his suggestion about switching professions, and picked up the thread of conversation where he left off. "I heard from Natsu that you recently got a pretty powerful red dragon card, right?" Chess sighed inwardly at how smoothly she could pretend not to hear. He watched her analyzing him and said, half-heartedly, "You also didn't change into your strongest fairy armor." "Oh," Urza blinked. "And the chest binder." "The chest binder?" Urza froze, beautiful eyes widening. The fairy armor had been named for the guild and was meant to protect comrades. She would never use it to exploit or undress them. But chest binder? You actually don't know?" Chess burst out laughing. The sight of the proud fairy queen looking flummoxed was almost endearing. "Isn't chest binder just the nickname for the clear heart outfit?" "Urza, only you would call it that." Chess snorted. "Seriously, though, couldn't you come up with a better nickname? Like Butterbread Dual Blade Garb or something. Anything but chest binder." Urza, not in the mood to debate clothing nicknames with the incorrigible card player, looked out over the ruined landscape and said plainly, "Chess, I lost this match." She never fancied herself particularly strong. That was why she wore heavy armor, to hide a fragile interior. Chess was different. In her mind, he was a rock-solid comrade with terrifying potential. She trusted him completely and believed he'd one day surpass her. Losing didn't embarrass her. It was a relief. "You said it," Chess replied with a grin. "So, what do you want?" Urza blinked at his steady gaze and took a half-step back. According to guild tradition, in an official spar, the loser must accept a punishment chosen by the winner. "Wait, that's a tradition?" The elder guild members who'd been around for years were taken aback. Chess shrugged. "Fine, Urza. If you don't want a punishment, you don't have to accept one." "Bastard Chess, who do you think you're talking down to? I am Urza Scarlet." Urza, protective of her pride, took the bait and clenched her fists. After thinking for 2.5 seconds, cheeks flushing, she put on the bravest battle cry she could muster. "Isn't it just warming your bed? I won't back down, not in the least." Chess froze mid-smile. "Who said my punishment was warming the bed?" Her resolve was impressive, though what warped premise led her instantly to think of that. "Stop pretending, you pervert. Lucy told me all about that when we were teamed up." Urza's sudden look of comprehension made the corner of Chess's mouth twitch. His right arm tightened into a fist. Fine, he'd take note of that. "Listen carefully, Urza. My punishment isn't warming beds. It's..." Chess held up one finger. "You must imitate the first guild member who speaks to you for an entire day." "Oh?" Urza tilted her head. "That's an unexpected punishment." She crossed her arms and shone with confidence. "You probably don't know, but I'm quite fond of stage plays and performing. This is less of a punishment and more of a chance to showcase my talents." Chess smiled and pointed toward the group of guildmates running over, shouting and laughing. "Before you get too confident, maybe take a look at the people in our guild." The confident smile drained from Urza's face as her gaze followed his finger to the front of the crowd. Gray, completely naked, hair and all. Elfman shouting something about being a real man. Kana lugging a whole wine barrel as if it were a purse. Vegeta spinning and jumping with his eyes squeezed shut. And then Lucy, whose image flashed instantly into Urza's mind, wearing that outrageously revealing seduction armor. The thought of having to imitate any of those eccentric, embarrassing people made Urza's complexion go crimson. Her eyes went wide and a faint steam of embarrassment seemed to rise from her. Absolutely not that one. It was at that moment, with the color climbing into her cheeks, that the Fairy Queen, so confident in her acting ability, finally understood Chess's filthy little mind and the malicious pleasure he'd been taking in setting the punishment. Chapter 58, Arrest Warrant from the Council. Under Urza's fearful, uneasy gaze, her companions finally arrived. Chess, look, I won money, 20,000 J. Happy's 10,000 is in here too. Lucy waved the banknotes in front of Chess, making sure to point out Happy's share. Urza silently tried to shrink away, her face filled with panic, repeating in her head, "They can't see me, they can't see me. That was one hell of a fight. I can't believe you beat that monster. Chess!" Gray laughed, shaking his head. Urza kept thinking, "They can't see me. Man, both of them are super manly." Elfman raised his fists and shouted, as if daring anyone to contradict him. "Urza, you're a girl." Kana muttered from her beer barrel with a hiccup, half drunk and half asleep. When Urza realized no one was paying her any particular attention, she breathed a shaky sigh of relief. If only the next person would act normal. "Urza, how could you lose to Chess? You're the captain of our strongest team," someone else complained. Happy, the small blue exceed who had lost his money, flew over and hugged Urza's calf, bawling. Urza's eyes went dark and her head spun. "Ha, Happy?" "Urza, what's wrong?" Happy peered up, noticing her odd expression. Urza went pale and froze. Her friends, seeing her rigid, trembling posture, assumed she had been hurt in the fight and crowded around, concerned. Under so many staring eyes, Urza swallowed hard. After a long moment of mental preparation, she managed to speak, voice shaking, I'm not injured." Her words hung in the air for 10 stunned seconds. Then everyone erupted. They stared as if they had just seen something rarer than a dragon. "Wait, Happy number 3? Urza turned into Happy number 3? Lucy blinked and rubbed her eyes. "Happy, huh? Your luck sure is something." Chess clapped Urza on the shoulder and explained the punishment to the others with a grin. "Right, Urza." Urza turned, eyes blazing with a fierceness more terrifying than any monster. That's exactly what happened." The Fairy Queen, no, Happy number 3, declared it plainly. Before anyone could fully process that, the temperature around them rose and a burst of heat flared. Natsu, who'd been knocked out by Urza's punch earlier, came to, fists blazing, and roared, "Damn it! How dare she do this to me? Where is that Urza? I want revenge!" "Oh ho, you're just in time, Natsu." Urza, ashamed and furious, clenched her fists and added an extra emphatic "I" at the end of her sentence. "Huh? Happy, Urza?" Natsu froze. He couldn't figure out what had happened, but whatever it was made Urza even scarier than usual. The bravado drained from him. He threw his arms around Gray and clung to him. Gray and I are getting along. We're not fighting." Gray flinched and shoved Natsu away, pushing and kicking. "Don't cling to me, you idiot who doesn't even know what's going on. If you want to die, don't drag me with you." "There's Happy number 2, Lucy shot back. The sight-hungry crowd, Macau, Wakaba, and others began to egg things on. "Ha, go on, Natsu and Gray, she's low on magic power. Come on, you two can do it. Begging for mercy now? Pathetic. You do it then. By the way, Mira, what's for dinner?" "Two beautiful ladies. Keep going, don't mind them." "Hey, Urza, want some fish?" "Don't worry, Levy. We'll protect you no matter what." Boom! A sharp, crisp sound cut through the rising chaos. A frog-like man in a council robe strolled in with an indifferent expression, his webbed feet making a wet, squelching noise. "Who is that?" Makarov murmured, frowning. The newcomer stopped and raised his hands. "Everyone, stand down. I am a council envoy." The envoy drew a document stamped with the council seal from his robe and laid it before Urza. Regarding the previous Eisenwald incident, for involvement in the destruction of public facilities and 11 additional charges, Urza Scarlet, you are under arrest. Shock spread like wildfire. "What? How can this be? We were protecting the passengers and city during the Dark Guild's attack." Lucy sprang forward, the first to defend Urza. "Exactly. Why arrest Urza instead of nabbing the mastermind, Aragorn?" she demanded. "Over my dead body." Natsu and Gray, who had just been cowed, instantly turned aggressive and planted themselves in front of Urza. "If you want our guild to openly defy the council's orders," the envoy barked. That was enough to light Natsu's temper. He stepped forward, ready to blast the strange man away. "Stop, Natsu, don't be rash," Chess said coolly. Urza pushed Natsu back and stepped forward, arms already extended and offering herself. Makarov watched without intervening as the envoy snapped a set of magic sealing cuffs onto her. The council's arrests of guild members were usually symbolic, a show of authority rather than a real sentence, so Makarov wasn't overly worried. Damn it! Natsu struggled furiously, trying to break through Macau and the others. Just as he broke their hold, a powerful hand forced him back. Follow the guildmaster's lead, Natsu, Chess said calmly, holding him. Makarov exhaled in relief. An S-class mage on the side made things easier, but then Chess himself stepped forward to stand beside Urza. Chess, you! Urza's eyes widened in confusion. You're Chess from the Galuna Island incident, right? Is there another reason? The envoy asked, recognizing him. Chess smiled. I was involved in the destruction at the meeting too. Take me as well. He wanted to use the arrest as an excuse to enter the council branch and find Jalal and Ultir. The Tower of Paradise and all its tragedy always lingered in his mind. If he could, he'd get some answers, or at least stir things up. The envoy's expression went cold and arrogant. Only Urza is charged. Unrelated personnel, do not interfere. Then, thud. The envoy doubled over, a hand on his gut, grimacing. Now I am too. Chess had retracted his fist, smiling brightly. The move had happened so fast, Lucy, Natsu, and the others were left stunned. Urza, still cuffed, stared in wide-eyed bewilderment. Makarov's mouth hung open, eyes bulging. Only one thought ran through his blank mind. Trouble-free my ass! Chapter 59, Laxus the Proud. Ultimately, Makarov himself had to step forward to restrain the impulsive Natsu. Chess and Urza, their wrists locked in magic-sealing manacles, were taken back to a nearby council branch under escort by a frog-like council envoy. On a distant cliff in a mountain range, two figures watched the fairy tale members return to Magnolia, looking more annoyed than surprised. Honestly, he's so tedious. Powerful enough, sure, but he always has to make a scene, Laxus scoffed. He propped himself on one hand at the cliff's edge, his fluffy cloak fluttering. Though he hadn't heard everything, he'd watched the outcome and could guess most of what happened. The council's judgment is just a farce. A cool, detached voice answered from beside him. Laxus glanced up at the masked man standing in the wind, several magic staves strapped to his back and a cloak wrapped around him. That fight was worth watching, Laxus continued, but it's a pity Urza couldn't force all of Chess's power out. He clenched his fist. Arcs of lightning danced across his skin. It annoys me. Want to spar, Mistogan? No interest, Mistogan replied without expression. Even through his mask, the words were flat. And Urza isn't weak. So you and I don't get along with Chess, then? Laxus sneered. He knew Mistogan's temperament well enough not to push. He relaxed his magic, dusted off his clothes, and stood. It's surprising you'd show up at all, hiding your face like that. With that kind of magical fluctuation on the outskirts of town, I'd have been a fool not to come, Mistogan said, watching the guild members grow smaller in the distance. After all, I am still a member of Fairy Tale. Shh, that sappy guild loyalty again? Laxus barked. Because of that tolerance, Fairy Tale's full of trash and weaklings. Laxus's face darkened. He had spent months in a rebellious mood. If the guild had recruited strong people when he'd urged it, he believed Fairy Tale would already sit at the top in Fior, maybe the continent. Mistogan stood there silently as the wind toyed with his cloak. When Laxus had finally said all he needed to, Mistogan spoke calmly. So, Laxus, you, still going on requests. Why are you here too? Laxus snapped. The single pointed question hit him like lightning. Laxus fumbled for an answer and failed. I just happened to be passing by. Who cares about those pieces of trash? His face reddened. I never said you cared about Urza or anyone. Mistogan's eyes narrowed, and for the first time, Laxus glimpsed something like a smile. Face your true feelings, then grow up a little, Laxus. You bastard, Laxus erupted. He struck his palm forward and released a bolt of lightning at Mistogan. The blast tore the earth where Mistogan had stood to dust, but Mistogan dissolved into a thin mist and vanished. Damn it, damn it, damn it, Laxus raged, unleashing thunder after thunder around him until the sky looked as if it were about to split. Magnolia. The normally raucous Fairy Tale guild was eerily quiet. Natsu, in his miniature fire dragon state, was trapped under a glass cup on the counter, venting tiny flames and flailing. Lucy, Gray, and Happy, outraged at Urza and Chess being arrested, pressed Makarov to let them go testify. The others sat in low, brooding silence. Wakaba, unflappable as ever, shrugged and poured tea for Mira. Don't do anything rash. Just wait for the judgment. Makarov, composed, sat cross-legged on the bar and raised a hand to stop Lucy, Gray, and Happy as they were about to bolt. His word was the last, and though they were reluctant, they stayed, faces tight with worry. The Natsu, under the cup, began to cough and choke. Makarov raised an eyebrow and flicked a small spell. Smoke cleared, and a sheepish Macau appeared, rubbing the back of his head. "Ah! I owe Natsu a favor from that Snow Mountain gorilla job," he said awkwardly. At the Magic Council branch, Chess and Urza walked down the hallway toward the judgment chamber, Frogman Envoy escorting them. Their hands were cuffed with council-sealing manacles. A man leaned against a column blocking their way. He wore the robe of a 10-wizard saint, blue hair stirred in the draft, and a curious red sigil marked his right cheek. The Frogman Envoy immediately dropped to one knee. "Zikrain?" Urza blurted, surprised. She remembered him from an earlier occasion when she and Makarov had come to apologize, a counselor, one of the 9. The truth, which she had learned later, was more complicated. Zikrain had been a thought projection used by Jalal to manipulate events concerning the Tower of Paradise. The projection's existence still carried weight with the council. "Long time, Urza," Zikrain said, stepping forward. He glanced at Ches and raised an eyebrow. "You're Ches Lin Edoga?" The Ermo Relic Island incident was still fresh in the council's minds. Ches was already notable to them. "Wasn't only Urza supposed to be arrested?" Zikrain asked. The frogman, still kneeling, replied stiffly. "Reporting, my lord, this scoundrel assaulted a council envoy. On the way here he struck me. My lord, I sought permission from the speaker once we reached the branch." Ches didn't look the slightest bit apologetic. "I know who he is. Don't worry about it," he said casually. To Ches, the council was full of hypocrites, and Jalal's involvement poisoned whatever respect he might have had. He shrugged. "Isn't he just a piece of trash from the council?" The frogman's face went ashen. He opened his mouth to scold when Zikrain raised a hand to stop him. "It doesn't matter. I'm only a thought projection right now, and those old men inside won't come all the way from the capital for a small matter like this, will they?" Zikrain said lightly. Urza's expression hardened. "Zikrain, was this all you're doing?" she demanded. "Don't misunderstand. I was defending Fairy Tale," Zikrain replied, stepping closer. He reached out, hooked one finger under Urza's chin, and leaned his head in as if to whisper something delicate and dangerous about the Tower of Paradise and the secrets they had to keep. Ches, shameless and curious, suddenly craned his neck and pressed his ear up against their faces, eavesdropping inches away. Chapter 60. Urza, are you willing to believe me? Zikrain said nothing. Urza was silent too. "Oh, my bad. I'm just a very curious person. I didn't disturb you, did I?" Ches glared at Zikrain, his eyes locked on the other man's. Their faces were barely inches apart. "You absolutely did disturb him." With Lucy absent, the frogman envoy played the straight man. "Humph, Ches, I'll remember you." Zikrain snorted, waved a hand, and turned to go. "Keep that matter to yourself, Urza. It will be better for both of us." His warning and threat drifted back as he walked away. Urza lowered her head, her expression dulled, a complicated light flickering in those beautiful eyes. Soon they were led into the courtroom. 9 council members sat in a row on the high platform. Ultir, dressed simply in white, sat among them. At the center, occupying the main seat, was the council chairman, Crawford. Chess recognized him. He was the bearded man who had used ancient magic to transfer the fist's key to himself, only to have his heart and lungs ripped out by Tartaros. But as Zikrain had said, all of them were nothing more than thought projections. Ches and Urza stood together at the defendant's stand, their gazes sweeping over the high and mighty council. Aside from a few peripheral faces he didn't know, Ches recognized most of them. Crawford shot Ches a bewildered look, as if to ask why he was inspecting the room like a tourist, then sighed. Assaulting a council envoy could be a serious offense. In a normal guild, it might mean a short prison stay, but Ches was the hero of Galuna Island, fresh from a victory that had earned the council praise, and a member of Fairy Tale, of course. He didn't want to make trouble. He only wanted to get Urza's matter over with and send them both home. He raised the gavel and brought it down on the bench. Thump! Thump! The sound echoed through the silent hall. Defendant Urza Scarlet, concerning the cursed song incident caused by Eisenwald a few days ago, Crawford intoned. Destruction of part of Oshibana Station, damage to the train tracks in Ryusika Canyon, and the complete ruin of Kurobara Town Meeting Hall. You are suspected of these crimes. According to witness descriptions, the culprit was a red-haired woman in armor. Boom! Just as Crawford was about to finish, the courtroom doors burst open. A figure in a ridiculous patchwork of armor came barreling in, shouting nonstop. Flames licked from his mouth, and his audacity was unmistakable to the council. That's right, I'm that red-haired woman in armor. Urza Scarlet, he yelled. Natsu! Urza stared, utterly bewildered. Ha ha ha, so he finally showed up, huh? Natsu, ah no, Urza. Chess had expected this and laughed out loud. Natsu, for his part, cast an offended look. I feel vaguely insulted by that. Urza pointed at Natsu, exasperated. How did that monstrous look resemble her at all? Predictably, Natsu's chaotic entrance had consequences. What should have been a quick hearing turned into something else entirely, and thanks to the commotion, Chess and Urza ended up spending the night in the council's prison assigned to Ichiya, albeit in surprisingly comfortable quarters. Inside the cell, Urza sat on the floor with her hand to her forehead, completely worn out. After a long and weary explanation, Natsu finally understood and scratched his head in frustration. Ha ha! Well done, Natsu. I probably would have done the same thing, Chess said with a grin and a thumbs up. Urza's exasperation deepened. She couldn't tell whether Chess had come to stand by her out of kindness or simply because he enjoyed the spectacle. Chess, however, smiled gently and asked, Isn't it admirable, Urza, to risk yourself for a friend? Urza looked down at Natsu, and despite everything, the corners of her mouth softened into a small, reassuring smile. Indeed. Thank you, Chess. Thank you, Natsu, she said, then pulled them both into a quick hug. Ding, dong, their foreheads knocked against steel armor with two crisp thuds. Ouch, so hard, they both cried. After the dust settled, Natsu lay on the floor fast asleep, snoring away. He was the sort who could fall asleep anywhere. Urza crouched beside him, amused, poking his cheek now and then, or shaping his face into the look of the frogman envoy. The Fairy Queen, famed across the land, took private delight in teasing Natsu as if she had been doing it since childhood. Ches watched quietly from the side. When Urza had had her fill, Ches finally spoke. You really do care. His expression grew more serious. Urza, when you saw Zikrain earlier, I could see you panic. There was fear in you. He paused, choosing his words carefully. What was the matter he mentioned? From the moment they'd been locked up, Chess had been observing the place. This prison was the council's lowest security holding, almost unguarded, with no magical crystals for surveillance, nothing like that. Urza's pupils shrank at his question. Her face changed. She hugged her knees tighter. Please, Chess, don't ask, she said in a weak, trembling voice, the Fairy Queen's usual poise gone. Her crimson hair fell across her face and hid her expression. The Tower of Paradise was the source of all of Urza's pain. Even after escaping that nightmare and winning her freedom, she still carried the lives of her former companions and everyone in the tower on her shoulders. Chess looked away from her curled figure and toward the narrow window. Moonlight poured in, soft and not unkind, bathing the cell in a gentle glow. He met her eyes again and spoke in a low voice. It must be hard to bear all that alone. If you don't tell anyone, you'll never get help. Urza, he said more softly, will you trust me? Under the moonlit smile, Urza trembled. She could no longer keep to herself the fragility and burdens she had suppressed for years. Tears slid down one cheek and dripped onto her cold, hard armor. That night, she finally confided in Chess. For the first time, she opened her heart and told him the unspeakable things that had happened in the Tower of Paradise.